Hello and welcome. I'm Leigh Ann Gerrans and you're watching W News, broadcasting live from the Al Arabiya headquarters. These are our top stories. 41 bodies are recovered from the Washington plane crash as investigators examine the aircraft's black boxes. Hamas named the next 3 Israeli hostages to be released this weekend. And life after Brexit. The UK looks towards its economic future after leaving the European Union 5 years ago today. To our top story, and 41 bodies have been recovered following the Washington plane crash. 67 people were killed when the American Airlines jet collided with a military helicopter on Wednesday evening. 2 black boxes have been recovered from the plane, with investigators attempting to piece together what happened. We can now go live to Washington to speak to our correspondent, Caroline Malone. Caroline, we're still waiting for the plane's black boxes to reveal the truth of what actually went on. But Donald Trump did not hold back when it came to attributing blame. How did his response go down in the US, and has there been any backlash at all?
Absolutely. And as you mentioned earlier, the efforts to recover the bodies of those victims of the crash is still ongoing. And it's particularly difficult today because we have these bad weather conditions. You can probably see behind me with a shot of Reagan Airport and how difficult that's making it for people involved in the recovery operation. In terms of why this crash happened and how it happened, there is still a lot of information we don't have. But yes, President Trump, particularly yesterday, was speaking at a press conference about some of his theories. He mentioned in particular this idea that the Blackhawk helicopter was at the wrong altitude. Speculation there, though, on his part, because he didn't present at least active evidence on that. He also talked about air traffic control and how potentially, in his view, the diversity programs of previous administrations might have impacted their standards and their high quality needed to do their job properly. Again, no evidence of that. And we've had lawmakers come out over these last couple of days, in particular in response to President Trump's comments, saying that this is not a time to jump to conclusions about what's happened. This is a time to share in the national mourning that so many people are feeling across the country right now, directly after this tragic crash. In terms of the facts of what we do know about the investigation, there's some interesting updates on Friday, which includes the FAA, the Federal Aviation Authority, has now indefinitely stopped most helicopters from flying around this airport space. Before the crash happened, it was a very congested airspace. You'd have about 800 flights a day coming in and out of the airport, and you'd have military helicopters flying in and out, sometimes on training missions, as the one was involved in the crash on Wednesday. We're now hearing, though, that they are stopping most helicopters except for police and except for urgent medical helicopters that are needed in the airspace. Maybe some suggestion that they're really doing everything they can to make sure there is absolute safety in those skies going forward. As well, we heard from the NTSB, they are leading an investigation into this crash. They've said it will take 30 days for them to get a preliminary report. So it will take a lot of time, really, for them to go through all the evidence to get to the point of really coming to a conclusion, at least an initial conclusion, of why this crash happened. But 2 black boxes have been recovered in the last 12 hours, and that will be critical in helping them with the data they need to do so.
We're also starting to get the names of the victims who perished. 12-year-old ice skater Olivia Terr, university professor Kia Duggins, Ryan O'Hara, who was the crew chief of the Blackhawk helicopter. What more can you tell us about them, Caroline?
Yeah, absolutely. Really tragic, hearing the individual stories of all the people involved in this horrible accident. Elizabeth Terr, you mentioned there, she was a 12-year-old, a very talented young skater actually was skating out of Maryland, so not far from Washington, D.C. She'd been part of this much wider group of figure skaters, about 20, we believe, who'd gone to Wichita, to Kansas, as part of the championships that were ongoing. You know, she had a very promising and bright future, and of course that has been tragically cut short by this accident. Among those on board were also 6 from the same ice skating group. They're based in Boston, and that figure skating community, losing 6 of their members in this one tragic accident, is absolutely reeling. You know, really shocked, of course, by this happening, but not least of all that they've lost so many lives in this one accident. Above and beyond that, we know that there were a group of young attorneys also on this flight. One of them was Kia Duggan. She is a 30-year-old who'd gone to Kansas to visit her mother, who was unwell. She was a young, aspiring lawyer. She was due to join Howard University here in Washington, D.C. as a professor in a couple of months' time. She'd gone to Harvard Law School. She'd done very well in previous jobs, achieved a lot in her short life, and had a really promising future as well. And that young life cut short in this tragic circumstances. We know, of course, as well, that there were a number of crew involved, 2 pilots from American Airlines, both with a lot of experience flying planes, and one of them, the co-pilot, who was due to be married in a few months' time. Really tragic, of course, for his friends and family and his fiancée in these circumstances. And also 3 pilots who are on the Blackhawk helicopter. So really a lot of families, a lot of relatives, loved ones absolutely devastated naturally by the news that's happened here. And we're still, you know, waiting for all the bodies to be recovered from the river. That is an ongoing mission. We understand more than 40 bodies have been recovered. But yes, we're looking at 67 victims overall. So there's a way to go just yet.
Caroline Malone in Washington, thank you very much. Let's get into this further with the former fighter pilot turned a military analyst, Sean Bell. Sean, thank you for joining me. We mentioned the black boxes there in my conversation with Caroline. What are we hoping to learn from them, and when are we likely to receive an update?
Yeah, good evening, Leigh Ann. I mean, I would add my thoughts and condolences to the families. There's 64 civilians dead, 3 army. It's an absolute tragedy. And I think the black boxes are part of the whole air accident investigation, because there's a lot of rhetoric you've been reporting around, some of the presidential rhetoric around this. But ultimately, people want to know facts. Why was it that in a busy international airport with very congested airspace, with very strict rules and regulations, how could this happen? The American Airlines aircraft seemed to be on a approved flight path, but at 400 feet, 150 miles an hour, it was struck. And of course, the Blackhawk helicopter was meant to be at 200 feet, was subsequently reported the accident was happened at 400 feet. The accident data recorders are exceptionally good at collecting all the data from the flight, not only the voice recording, but also all of the position of the aircraft and the like. The accident investigation will also be looking at air traffic control tapes, so all of the radar tapes, the voice tapes as well. And of course, they'll be looking at the pilots, all the pilots involved, to find out, were they fed properly? Were they rested properly? Were they properly qualified? Had they done their simulators? All of which will be done in an investigation. I flew jets in my previous career and was the subject of a crash. The jet caught fire. And so I know the way that these reports go. And generally speaking, they're 2 phases. They want to have an urgent report feedback so that they can give some preliminary findings to allow people to get on and start to modify procedures. And the long term, which often takes up to a year, before you actually get to the bottom of the investigation and find out every detail about what had happened. And that's what we'll be expecting from this accident investigation.
So we've got some time to wait, but let's just talk about the rhetoric that President Trump, as you mentioned there, has surrounded this. He said that military helicopter was just flying too high. Do you think this could have contributed to the collision, or do we just not know until we've got these reports through?
I think it's always dangerous to go too far speculating. I'm a big fan of the air accident investigation doing their job, but I suspect one of the areas they will be focused on is how did 2 airplanes end up being in the same patch of sky? As I said, it does look like the civilian aircraft was following the correct track. It was in the right approach path for runway 33 on that evening. So the question is, why was the military helicopter at 400 feet not, as it's meant to be, at 200 feet? And there's a couple of reasons for that, one of which the the pilot could have been distracted. It was on a training mission. There was lots of talk about the lighting and that military aircraft have a better way of seeing at night. Well, they do. I used to fly with night vision goggles and forward-looking infrared. They're very good when it's very low light conditions in the middle of the countryside where there's absolutely no ambient light. Those don't work very well in the middle of built-up areas where there's lots of ambient light. So the pilots of the military aircraft will be relying mainly on their eyeballs to look out. The other way, of course, it might not have been distracted. They may have had some form of emergency in the cockpit. And I've flown in aircraft. Whenever you do get an emergency, the first thing you do is fly the airplane. And if you're flying very low at night, the first thing you're going to do is ease away from the ground. That might explain why the aircraft was higher. But whatever happened, there's no doubt that the investigation will be focused on why two aircraft ended up being in the same picture sky, ended up with a disastrous accident. And at the moment, I suspect they'll be focused on what the helicopter was doing at 400 feet.
Sean, Trump also laid the blame with the air traffic controllers. Reports of them being short-staffed and leaving their shift early have really come to light since this accident. As a former military man yourself, what's the protocol when it comes to communicating with air traffic control? And really, for you, what are your expectations?
I think this is probably the most worrying one that the president was commenting on, because just because the air traffic controller asked whether the military aircraft could actually see the civilian aircraft, and President Trump suggested he should have told him what to do. You've got to be very careful here, because the rules and regulations, the civilian aircraft was in controlled airspace and had to do exactly what it was told. The military helicopter was flying 200 feet down a helicopter route and operating what's called VFR, visual flight rules. In other words, it's the pilot's responsibility to maintain his spacing from other aircraft. So it's not the air traffic controller's job to tell him what to do. The air traffic controller can often see two blips on a radar screen getting very close together, but what they should be done is procedurally they should be height deconflicted. And therefore, the question becomes why the helicopter should have been at 200 feet, the civilian aircraft was at 400 feet. How did they end up being at the same height? And it may well be that actually the air traffic controller stepped beyond his boundaries by actually interjecting and just suggesting to the military pilot, have you seen the other aircraft? Suggest you go behind it. So we've got to be very careful here that you can't have air traffic controllers telling the pilots which way to go when the pilot's actually responsible for his collision avoidance. And therefore, I think the investigation will look at this, but I think it's entirely inappropriate for anybody to judge that the air traffic controller did something wrong, when I suspect there'll be the report might well applaud the air traffic controller for trying to do something to avert it.
Sean Ball, a former fighter pilot turned military analyst, thank you so much for your insights this evening. Now, 3 Israeli hostages who will be released this weekend have been named by Hamas today. Ofer Calderon, Keitha Samuel Segan and Yardan Bibas will be freed under the terms of the 6-week ceasefire agreement. In exchange, Israel will release 90 Palestinian prisoners. The 4th round of swaps follows yesterday's release of 8 hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. We can now go live to Tel Aviv to speak to our correspondent Giles Gibson. Giles, good evening to you. We spoke yesterday after the release of the 3rd swap and we saw those chaotic scenes. Are we expecting tomorrow's exchange to be a little bit less fraught?
Yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, described the scenes at that handover of those hostages as horrific. And he actually, along with the Israeli government, halted the release of Palestinian prisoners in exchange temporarily due to the Israeli government's outrage over those scenes until they received assurances, as they were described, over the safe release of future hostages in future rounds. And so the Palestinian prisoners were exchanged in the end on Thursday. We saw these 2 separate locations on Thursday where the handovers took place. The first one involving a female Israeli soldier in Jabalia. The soldier was taken up on stage. Yes, there was a large crowd there. There was the sort of usual kind of stage management that we've seen from Hamas over the course of previous rounds. But really there were just not the sorts of scenes that we saw breaking out in Khan Yunis, with that huge crowd pressing around the hostages as well as the white SUVs from the Red Cross that were due to take them out of Gaza. So over the course of Saturday, we will be watching very closely to see if there's any sort of a repeat of those kind of scenes.
One of tomorrow's hostages due for release is Yarden Bibas. He was taken in the October the 7th attack alongside his wife and their two very young sons. Hamas have said that his wife and his children have sadly died in an Israeli airstrike. But Giles, how reliable is this information?
Well, during the very first ceasefire that we had back in November of 2023, Hamas said that Yarden Bibas's two children, his very young two children, and his wife had all been killed during Israeli strikes on the Gaza Strip. Now, that is something that we have to stress, that the Israeli government has never confirmed. They simply said at the time that they were investigating in terms of the whereabouts or the condition of Yarden Bibas' wife and two children. Just earlier this week, actually, we also had some reports in Israeli media that the government had once again been pushing to get some kind of information, some kind of clarification about the whereabouts, about the condition of Yarden Bibas' wife and two very young children. And I think it's also important to point out here that this family's story really demonstrates what we're seeing play out as the different groups get released. We see, on the one hand, yes, a huge amount of relief, celebrations, even joy, people being reunited with their families. But we're also seeing that sort of interwoven into so many of these families' stories is also a huge amount of tragedy, a huge amount of trauma.
Yes, indeed. Giles Gibson in Tel Aviv. Thank you very much. Let's take a look at some of the other stories making the headlines today. Russian forces have continued their push towards the eastern Ukrainian city of Pokrovsk. The fall of this key logistical hub could put Russia in a stronger position to mount attacks. Ukraine has fiercely defended the city, whose rail and road connections make it an important supply centre for a large section of Ukraine's front line. The US has approved a new non-opioid drug aimed at treating short-term pain. Vertex Pharmaceuticals says it provides effective relief without addictive potential of opioids. The United States has been grappling with the painkiller addiction crisis for several years. New York prosecutors have added new charges in their case against rapper Sean Diddy Combs. The former music mogul is accused of forcing two additional women into commercial sex acts and dangling a person over an apartment balcony. Combs has been in jail since September and already faces initial charges of racketeering, sex trafficking by force, and transportation to engage in prostitution. His trial is set for the 5th of May. 90s rock band Nirvana have surprised fans at a Californian concert to raise money for the wildfire relief efforts. The evening kicked off with artists Billie Eilish and Green Day, with additional performances from Katy Perry, Pink and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. All proceeds from the event will go towards helping those affected by the deadly wildfires that raged on for weeks. Companies and consumers across North America are preparing for a 25% tariff on imports that could come into play tomorrow if imposed by President Donald Trump. A Saturday deadline was set in exchange for Canada and Mexico to take tougher action on illegal immigration, as well as the flow of fentanyl into the United States. Similarly, Trump has threatened a 10% tariff on Chinese imports. Businesses in Hong Kong have been looking to other markets since the first trade war between the US and China erupted in 2017 when Trump was first elected. But tariffs are likely to hit the city's economy, which is closely linked to mainland China. Laura Westbrook reports.
Businesses in Hong Kong are bracing themselves for another trade war between the US and China. A government trade body says Hong Kong traders had been looking to Southeast Asia and Mexico to offset some of the negative impact of potential tariffs from the US.
Our traders try to navigate all the complexity and the uncertainty in traditional market, including the US, but also try to engage with new partners to diversify and try to mitigate the risks.
This includes shifting production bases outside of mainland China, such as to Vietnam, to continue to tap into the US market. Hong Kong's economy is closely linked to mainland China. Any impact there will have an impact here too. The United States is the city's third largest trading partner. If tariffs take effect, analysts say exports will fall. Economists say tariffs would not only affect trade flow between the US and China, but could also have an effect on employees' wages in China and consumer sentiment.
Compared to 2018, definitely the Chinese economy is not performing as good as before, which basically means that the buffer may be weaker than before. But at the same time, China is also more prepared for any potential conflict in the trade aspect. So it has been actively trying to explore other non-US market, trying to diversify its export destination, etc. So that could actually mitigate some of this impact. But still, whether the rest of the world can fully offset the US demand, this is a very big question mark.
Economists say while tariffs are a tool that Donald Trump will use to bring China to the negotiation table, the overall trend of competition, especially in sectors that relate to technology and security, raises questions of what will happen when they get there. Laura Westbrook for Al Arabiya News, Hong Kong.
On the 31st of January 2020, the UK left the European Union after 50 years of membership that included free trade and free movement between Britain and 27 other European countries. 5 years later, businesses and those travelling in and out of the United Kingdom continue to navigate the economic and culture after effects. It's also changed the face of British politics and the leaders who govern the country. Let's go live to speak to our correspondent, Ollie Barrett. Ollie, 5 years ago feels like yesterday. I must admit, I remember the day so well. So 5 years since the UK left the EU, so many divided opinions about whether the country is better off or not. What changes and impact has it had?
Yeah, it feels like 5 days ago, but also somehow 50 years ago. 5 years, though, it is, and the country has had to change in many ways since then, not least, of course, trade and the economy because of the changing relationship with the UK's biggest trading partner and all that that has meant for businesses that do trade with countries in the European Union. As you say, it's changed politics forever here in the UK as well. It's changed the way people can move around the European continent, be that for travel, for holiday purposes or for business purposes, for finding employment. That has changed and become harder for many people wanting to work on the European continent and vice versa as well. Immigration, a key factor in all of this. Immigration was one of the key issues for many that voted for Brexit, but actually since the UK left the European Union, immigration has not fallen. Indeed, it's risen, even if much of that is now non-EU immigration rather than EU immigration. So all sorts of ways in which the country has changed in the intervening 5 years.
Yes, indeed. And we've also had a change of government. As we know, we've got Labour in now, and Chancellor Rachel Reeves referenced a Brexit reset in her Big Growth Kickstart speech, which was earlier this week, saying the UK is absolutely happy to look at joining a tariff-free trading scheme with Europe. Ollie, what exactly would this look like?
Well, this scheme that is being potentially thought about by the UK government, and it's been rather coy about whether or not it would like to join up to something like this, is it is a customs arrangement that is not explicitly, the UK government wants to be clear, a customs union of the type that it used to be signed up to when it was a member of the European Union. It's called the Pan-Euro-Mediterranean Convention. That's what we're talking about here. It's a grouping of 25 or so countries in Europe and mostly the North African Mediterranean region. And what it means is that the signatories to this convention, in some areas, goods moving from one supply chain to another can be easier moving in various different directions between countries than if you are outside this grouping. It is not anything like being a member of the single market or the customs union or moving back into the European Union itself. And there's some scepticism here in the UK about how much of a difference it would make to how many businesses. But for some businesses, it would certainly ease movement of goods and items from supply chains between one country and another. And it's that type of thing that the UK government is now considering. But as I say, they're being rather coy at this point about whether that is exactly what they are aiming for as part of what you say they're describing as a reset of ties with the European Union.
Ollie, this might send shivers down some people's spines who are watching, but there's continuing talk of whether or not there would be a return to the European Union by means of another referendum. Is this actually ever likely to happen? Is there appetite for it?
I think you can't rule it out completely forever, but I think it's also unlikely in the short to medium term. And that is despite the polling. It's interesting because increasing numbers of polls suggest that a majority of British people do now think that leaving the European Union was a mistake. But that is rather different from people thinking that they necessarily want to have another referendum or indeed open up that political argument over again. Now, there are some that do. The Liberal Democrats, for example, think the UK should be heading back into a customs market and a customs union and a single market, potentially looking at joining the EU again at some point in the future. But for the Labour government at the moment, they say it's completely off the table. No intention to call a referendum, no intention to try and get back in the EU. And part of that is just because it would completely dominate political discussion and discourse from the moment that such a referendum was called until the moment that that referendum took place. It would suck all of the oxygen out of all of the other things that the government is trying to do when it comes to the economy, when it comes to trade, when it comes to foreign policy, almost anything else. The referendum and the possible rejoining of the EU would just absolutely dominate all discussion from here on in. And the government just doesn't want to engage in that at this point, and neither do the Conservatives, who have just recently left power. So the two major parties aren't at all signalling they want to move back towards the European Union. So for now, at least, as I say, in the short to medium term, any fresh referendum or attempt to join the European Union looks unlikely, but you can't rule it out forever, especially given some of that polling.
Ollie Barrett in London, thank you. Let's take a look at the top business news. Costco will increase its hourly pay for most of its US store workers by more than $30. It's thought the retailer will increase hourly pay for its top-of-the-scale employees over the next 3 years. The pay hike comes after union members voted in favour of a nationwide strike as they entered the final round of contract talks ahead of today's deadline. South Korea's data watchdog will question Chinese startup DeepSeek on how it manages users' personal information. It's after the company launched its powerful new AI chatbot this week, which sparked a rout in US tech titans. DeepSeek claims its chatbot matches the capacity of AI pace setters in the US for just a fraction of the price. Turning to sport now, and Manchester United, Tottenham Hotspur and Rangers have secured their spots in the Europa League last 16 on the final round of group games. United, who like Tottenham have endured a disappointing Premier League season, won 2-0 at Steaua Bucharest to continue their recent return to form. And former Watford and Brighton boss Oscar Garcia has been given a 3-match touchline ban for kicking Colombian forward James Rodriguez during a Mexican League game. Garcia kicked Rodriguez on the back of the legs during a fight between the players and coaching staff. The 51-year-old, who was sent off for the incident, apologised after the La Liga MX game. A reminder of our top stories. 41 bodies are recovered from the Washington plane crash as investigators examine the aircraft's black boxes. Hamas name the next 3 Israeli hostages to be released this weekend. And life after Brexit. The UK looks towards its economic future after leaving the European Union 5 years ago today. And that's all from us on W News. Thank you for joining us. The dressing room is coming up next. And don't miss Tom Burges Watson with GNT. Good night.
Arabiya is beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Arabiya News.
It's very impressive.
Where knowledge meets perspective.
Welcome to the dressing room with our Arabiya News. Good to be back, boys.
Yeah. Always.
First things where we start. What have we been up to this week, Bridgie? You've had another interesting one. No sledgehammers in your legs this week, no?
Few things. I went to Paris for Fashion Week with Percival.
Oh, yeah?
Just went in for the night, which was really good. Obviously, I've come on board with the boys.
What does that even mean? Like, what is Fashion Week like in Paris?
Yeah, I've never been to a fashion.
I never got to see a lot of it, to be honest, because it was a quick visit for me. But, you know, if you're into fashion, you can go around and see all the other brands and stuff like that, and there's probably a lot of schmoozing that goes on. Percival had an event which was really good. Just go for a bit of dinner, and then for me it was great because I got to meet people. Someone from Vans, Dr. Martens, Darren from Dr. Martens. I don't think he's there anymore. And Nick from Vans, who actually knew, because Vans obviously soaked with skateboarding and snowboarding. He got to meet the people that realised he knew the people that got me started in it all.
Oh, really?
Which was really good. Just meeting people, really.
You've always
good people. Yeah, they were nice people.
Geez, you've always marched to your own drum with a fashion, didn't you? You've always had that.
It's got a little bit of an edge on that.
I like it.
No.
It's edgy.
I've always, for me,
edgy,
I think it's one of them, edgy, bridgy. I think it's one of them things that I've always liked it, but I've kind of sometimes I've thought, I'm not going to wear that. It's a bit out there. It's a bit this. But I think I've probably, coming of age or just learned to be a bit more, give things a go, a bit more positive in myself. Yeah. And thought it's a great opportunity. A confidence thing probably. And not listening to all the noise from outside and what people think, I think, sometimes. But it was a rush visit, so a few hours sleep, and I had to get back to the UK to go up to Manchester, because the boys are mascots at Manchester game.
You sent me that. They look so happy.
Yeah, they look happy, man.
They look so happy.
It's one of them moments I think I didn't realise it as a player. You know you can put a smile on the kid's face, but you don't actually realise what it actually means to them. Like, oh, mate, me seeing my kids' faces, they're just so happy.
They were walking out with Haaland, right?
Yeah, walks out with Haaland.
Oh,
the main man as well.
And main man as well.
You can just tell by their face how happy they are. And Park was trying to hide it a little bit, and that's what he does. He hides it sometimes, but I could see how happy he was. And the other one was just like that, looking around.
In awe.
Just couldn't stop smiling.
Right.
And you don't realise it's the parents as well. Like, I felt so happy for it. So, like, back in the day when we were meeting all these kids and, you know, sometimes the parents, you don't realise what it does for them as well. As a knock-on effect, you know, they talk about it all the next day and everything. And my missus has got them writing journals at the moment. I didn't think they'd take to it, but they have, to be fair.
Really?
At night, they were both writing about
journals?
it.
Oh,
yeah,
that's good.
Journals.
I know. Yeah,
that comes up on my iPhone sometimes. It says journals. I just swipe. Can't be doing that journal.
I'm like you, but
as you should do, isn't it?
It is good to write sometimes. It is good.
We're an
and
advocate
they've
for
took
that.
to it. They have took to it.
That reminds me of, like, you're right. It's bang on because we didn't realise it as players how much, you know, kids love. When we was on holiday in Dubai. And I'm there with the kids and I managed, you know, like in the moments when you're a parent and you manage to get the kids sorted. They was off playing football and I thought, right, I sat down on my chair. I had my tunes on, ordered myself a drink. I thought, right, I'm not moving from here because it's good 3 hours now. And then I see my kid, both my boys come running back towards me. And I'm thinking, you know, like the way they're running was like something's happened. So I bounced up, what's on it? And he was like out of breath. And he was like, Dad, I thought, what is it? A tsunami coming or something? What's going on? He's gone. He went. Grealish and Haaland have just walked past. I went, go and say hello. And like he went, Dad, I can't. Will you come with me? And I thought, I'm like, I've got to get off the sunbed here. Like, do you know what I mean? All right, Erling, how are you? Yeah, I know Jack. So I went up, found him, and then hold on. We've had a disturbance.
Michael, mate.
Disturbance going on.
Disturbance. We need you on pause. We need you,
Yeah, that's it, mate.
His little head pop up.
I thought we were getting told off.
That's a boring story. So anyway, we've gone to see it. So, and I've seen, and my boys are pretty blasé about it all, but they see Haaland and Jack.
Yeah.
And that, mate, they were like so excited. And then I've remembered, like, so it was, they got me off my sunbed, but they buzzed off it. So you're right. You're absolutely
he's
right.
Great.
Jack's the man.
My kids at one of these. He was so good with the kids. So good. I'd say John Stones was as well.
Yeah.
He was really up there. It's great when you see that.
I know.
Because you can come across some players where they just like get away with you. Do you know what I mean?
They're focusing on the game, and I do understand that part as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what?
They just got to be more aware of what they mean to people.
Yeah.
Just hard when you're young sometimes.
Yeah. Quickly getting into that, I love John Stones. I've only met him once. He's been a blinder, but I knew I'd love John Stones when I saw the video of him at Raheem's wedding when he was speaking Jamaican and stuff. I love him.
He can dance as well.
He can move. Yeah, he can move.
Talking about Raheem, I went to Winter Wonderland not so long ago.
Yeah,
and I bumped into him in the at Winter Wonderland in the VIP part, and he came over straight away and just shook my hand. Like he's really. I didn't even know he knew me. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I'd never played with him or anything like that. But I just thought, wow, what a man, what a guy. And then thing about you talk about the kids. So I've got a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old, and they're just like too cool for school now, aren't they? And they don't want to do any go. So I said, go and get a picture of him. Or it's like, Dad, not on it.
Really?
Like, yeah, I'm like, listen, he's here. He's in the house. He's in the same building. Go on. Because now I'm all right.
They do deep down.
Yeah, they do.
Of course they do.
I know my boys. I've gone over to him. I says, listen, come on. He's got up straight away. He goes, he knows, innit? Like, I was like, can you take a picture of my boys? Because I know we take a group one. I'll get the picture off. It's a nice picture. And but then they was up straight away, man. They started running over. I was like, hold on a minute. You used to say you didn't want a picture. All of a sudden, you're involved. I was like, this is what I'm trying to say. Like, sometimes you just got to take the lead for your... Because you know that's what they really want inside. And you got to recognise there's a massive opportunity for them. Just to say, just having their archives, innit? It's nice.
I always say don't be afraid to ask.
Don't be afraid. Don't be too cool.
You actually said that to me because
But I'm like that anyway. You see what I'm like with Lewis Capaldi? I'm just straight in, didn't I? So I don't care.
Yeah.
I realise it's an opportunity. It's a moment, innit? Let's get it done.
Yeah, well,
we're not here forever.
You're not here for a long time.
What might happen again?
And what about you, Coley? What have you been up to?
I've done a bit of travel. I went up to Hull City to watch the under-17s over there. My son was being scouted because he wants to play for Sierra Leone. So
right, okay.
So I'm half Sierra Leonean, half Nigerian. Obviously born in England.
Yeah.
And then, but he says, no, Dad, I want to play for Sierra Leone. I was like, what, you don't want to wait out for England? He's like, nah, I want to play for Sierra Leone. And then he was I got a phone call from the Sierra Leone national team. And he basically said, listen, we're looking for a left centre-half, left wing-back.
Right.
Your son suits the bill, but I want to go and watch him. So I said, all right, cool. We'll go up. We'll go up together.
Yeah.
So, I know my boy really wants to play national football. And the under-20 African Nations is coming up.
Right.
So he wants to be in that squad. And he's only 16s, mind you. You know
what
I mean?
The full
African national, but under 20s, yeah.
Under 20s, not the full. No, I was going to say it's a big
it's
jump
under
for him.
20s. No.
Under 20s is amazing. At 16.
Yeah, so and there's all young players.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go over there on a scouting project for West Ham, obviously, as you do.
Moonlighting.
Yeah, and then
at the West Ham playing the.
I'm going to any travelling.
I'm going on West Ham business.
Okay.
I'm going to go with one of the chief scouts. You know what I mean? I'm going there. I'm going to run my eye over the place.
Yeah.
Go and see the next Mane or the next Salah. You know?
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
And then, and listen, you know, over there's going to be loads of strikers, and the world looking out for strikers at the moment. It's a shortage in it. So, I'm going over there. Probably that's in April, and then hopefully my son's in the squad. So he done well. He done well in the game.
Yeah.
Then I came back down. Then I went. I can't remember. I've done. Listen, my whole life is a blur, geez. I don't know if it's from last week or it's this week or it's just a whole blur. But then on top of that, I was just watching games and that. You know.
Yeah.
I've got to go tomorrow. Tomorrow I've got to go to a game.
Because people listening might not know. What's your actual role at West Ham? Head of loans?
Yeah, head of loans.
So
loans
that's
manager.
Important role part for the kids' development. It's an important role, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And you get loads of phone calls, obviously inquiring about the boys that we have and who's available. And I get that all the way through the week. So, and you've got to do this thing called aftercare as well. Right. So now, with aftercare, like say if a boy's coming to the end of his contract with you, with the club, you've got to make sure that he's going into something else and he's all right. He's got
not
a contract. Not
necessarily football.
Well, not make sure, but you got to try and help the process.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not, football. It'll be football because they'd have already leaving West Ham. You should get another club at whatever level. So I was talking to loads of clubs. One in Sweden, one in over in the MLS. Even.
Yeah.
Just try and get them all straight. And I feel really. I feel really great when I do connect the dots.
Yeah.
But I'm like the agent of him, working with his agent, trying to get him the right.
It must be rewarding.
It is. It's lovely, man. If you get it right, and they go and spread their wings and they go and make a career for themselves, and you've had a part of that. That's what life's about, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've had a great career, great experience, and you just want the same for the other kids that are trying to make it. And it might not make it at your club that you're at, but you can also try and influence his next move and try and
Duty of
get
care.
on the ladder. Duty of care.
Duty of care.
Yeah. It's really important.
That's good. But no, that's like going back to me. Like obviously, I've been going in at Brentford and coaching, so that's been an eye opener. Getting myself back in.
Are you mentoring, or is it just coaching?
A bit of everything, really. I'm sort of with the under-18s at the moment. A good bunch. A lot of players. Are like heavy 25 squad. And what I did this week was there was an audit from the Premier League. So I sort of go in and the guys been brilliant with me. They've been like, what would you like to do? How do you want to develop? This is how we can help you. The first thing I got a message saying, do you fancy going into an audit? And I wanted to text back. I actually typed out, nah.
I'm not interested.
But then I thought, no, I'm here to learn. Let me see.
Let's try it.
So I went in and it was an audit. So it's the whole of the staff, youth team, everyone who's in like education, scouting, coaches,
recruitment,
everything. And then the auditors come in for the Premier League and then they do case studies on players. Obviously, I can't talk about what went on, but I was blown away by the amount of detail and care and organisation it takes. If anyone's listening to this and your son, or you're a kid and you're listening and your son's in an academy system like that, you're being so well looked after. There's so much thought going into everything they do.
Yeah.
And
you've got a plan for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, who's the next one coming through?
Yeah.
You've got a plan, okay, if he doesn't get near the first team, what else is available for him? And how are we going to bridge the gap for him to get to first team level? So it's a massive process. Yeah. And now that it wasn't as detailed as it was when we're coming through, but now there's so much money in it and there's money available to invest in the future.
Yeah.
You've got to get the right people to be able to make that future come true kind of thing. So it's a really big eye-opening experience as well. So I'm glad you went in that.
No, it's good.
Because I'm in them kind of meetings all the time.
Yeah. I was blown away.
You learn a lot.
Well, that's it. Listen, I thought it's been a quiet week for us. No sledgehammers in the knee or, do you know what I mean, anything like that. So, but we're going to get straight onto the football, and it's going to Man United winning 1-0 Fulham.
Yeah.
Watching it, I thought that was one of the most boring games I've ever come across. But the press conference weren't boring. Let's be honest. Amarin is becoming a regular on this pod. Opening people up. He's like a troll.
He's opening people up. He's like a surgeon.
It reminds me of Jose. Remember, like, you'd played a game, and then wonder what he said in the press conference.
Yeah.
Me, mostly were thinking,
it must be a Portuguese thing.
Mate, I don't know what it is like. I don't know what it is, but...
I've watched the game. Actually, I weren't watching the game. It was till someone said in a group chat, so I watched it from about 60 minutes. And then afterwards, I watched Match of the Day, then I saw the whole picture. And someone said to me, God blimey, this is a bad game.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you're damn right, it is a bad game, because I saw it, and I see Højlund get dragged off.
Yeah.
He's going through at the moment.
Yeah.
He's got no confidence.
Yeah.
But then you look at it and you think, do you know what? This is a good game for Manchester United to win. When you're not playing well and you don't, loads of things are not going right, just getting that win is like a reward and a sigh of relief. And then they're struggling for goals as well, you know, and you look at the Rashford situation, then what Amarin's talking about afterwards, saying that he'd rather play his goalkeeping coach who's 63 years old rather than put him up front because he doesn't apply himself. Basically, he doesn't apply himself properly. I want to know what's going on.
Yeah,
but
we don't really know the full story, do we? You obviously go off what he said.
Yeah.
But he's said he's not training hard enough. It's a lifestyle thing. You don't really hear
killing him though.
Rashford's side. But he's killing him massively, killing him.
And you're killing his price tag as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Because like you're supposed, Rashford's a commodity. He's money.
Yeah.
You know, if you really want to sell him on, why would you say that? That's why I think Amarim's a little bit naive because he's going with his emotions.
Yeah.
Because he's thinking, Rashford's not doing what I'm saying. I'm the boss.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm Radcliffe, I'm looking at him, I'm thinking, you need to shut your mouth.
Yeah, we're trying to sell him.
We're trying to sell him in. Yeah. You're saying that he's not living the right lifestyle.
It's the equipment.
Hold on a mate. We're trying to get it.
There's some car salesman trying to sell the car, and someone in the office going, the fan belt's gone. The fan belt's gone. Don't do it. That's what it is.
On 350 grand a week. I'm trying to offload him.
Leave it. Say he's a fit. He's flying.
Say he's fitting. He's flying. Please. I'm trying to sell him.
You start to think there's more gone on than just his trainer's life. Something it's like where they add words. Do you know what I mean? You feel like there's more has got to have happened for him to come out and really publicly do it.
Yeah.
I don't think. This is what I think. Radcliffe needs to be clear to Amarim. Stay away from the Rashford conversation, please.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to do a deal here.
Yeah.
You've just come out and said...
Just say no comment.
Do you remember...
But there's got to be communication. There's got to be communication. You don't talk about it because we need to get money in for him.
It's a very simple one, Coley. If you're manager of a football club and you don't want to talk about a player that's not played a game, you have a duty to talk about players in the game, media, because media runs football. So you do have to say your opinion on how the game went. But if you're not picking him, I'm not talking about players not involved in the game. Next question, please.
Yeah.
That's what Alex Ferguson would have done.
Simple. It's like talking about other people's players.
Did he?
Who?
Did he dig anyone out? Oh,
yeah, me all the time.
Well, did he do it in the press?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes you dress you down in the press, mate.
Yeah.
But that would be just. It might be just. You know, you might have needed it.
What was he saying?
Oh, mate, he said I have a few things. What was it? I have a beautiful face and a ugly face, and I need to do this. And I need
face is going on your looks.
No.
I'm joking.
And then it was like there's a few things.
Yeah.
I can't even remember now. It was always seemed to be. So I scored the winner against Liverpool. I've said the story before. I scored the winner against Liverpool, and I thought I was the bee's knees. We won 1-0 at home. You would have been playing, Bridgie, I'm sure. A cross come in from a set. I scored from a set, like cross come in, turned it in, 1-0, big game. We went top of the league. I was out that night, strolling around London like it was Saturday Night Fever, having myself to the maximums. And then back in the day, for people who don't realise, it's like, you didn't know what happened in the press conference until you read the papers the next day. Then my phone's pinging in the morning, and it was like headlines like, Joe scored the winner, but he didn't track runners, he nearly cost us the game, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, wow, the standards, this, do you know what I mean? I'm like, to score the goal to take us top of the league.
Should be grateful.
I'm thinking, I'm good.
Were you tracking the runners?
I thought...
No, but you wouldn't. You wouldn't expect it to be said, though, would you? You want it in-house.
In-house. But I think. But what I'm saying is, I think he did that for whatever reason. He would have had a motivation and reason. I'm not sure. I agree with Colin. I'm not sure. Amorim. I think it might have been a bit of an emotional one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't make no sense to do that because Chelsea weren't trying to sell me at the time or anything like that.
No.
Well, I don't think they was, but
no, they weren't.
Yeah. So
I
I'm
did
not sure.
see part of it where he's basically thinking he has to think along the lines of. He needs to think before he speaks. You can see what English people are like and the way the press and that, and it's just like.
Well, you know what?
Be very careful sometimes. What to say. I think it was that he might regret what he says.
Yes,
I think it was
Reggie,
one of the lines
I think because he's such a young manager, he's 40 years old. He just turned 40.
Yeah.
So he's got a lot to learn. You know, like I'm 40. I'm 40. Sometimes I lead with my emotions.
Aren't we?
Like, sometimes I lead with my emotions, and he's not been at this level to manage such a big club, and someone's not pulling their weight. He wants to address them down. There's ways about doing that, especially if you've got such a massive value on this player, because you're paying him loads of money to do his job, and he ain't doing it. But that's now down to upstairs. What do they need to get out of this? You can't get involved in it as a gaffer because you're here to coach and manage. That's your team. The other stuff where money comes into it, that's nothing to do with you. So now you're stepping into a land where you're not welcome, really, because you're not here for that. We're paying you to coach and manage. Don't start putting... And I get it. He has a right to say certain things, but don't put the player down because I'm trying to sell him now. I'm trying to get the best deal for us, and you're messing it up. You know?
I don't think necessarily needs to be said in the press, but do you think sometimes they're looking for a reaction?
What
he's giving it to
a
them.
Positive reaction from him.
Yeah,
do you think that's
been tried and this has been going on for years. Like with Marcus Rashford, he's been dug out and he's not responded that way. So don't keep trying something that's not working. I don't know what.
What happened with Pogba over there?
Yeah,
It's
true.
happened with Cristiano Ronaldo. So it's a culture thing over there, which needs a kick, and he's just got involved in it.
Yeah.
He's come to the club.
In-house conversations going on between them.
Ole, I don't think Ole ever done it because he knows the culture of the club. I don't think he ever dug any player out. He might have said team, but he never said. I've never come out and said. I don't think he's ever come out and said one player is the fault of this. I think Ten Hag did. With Cristiano. I think he done a little bit with Rashford as well. I think Jose did. And he's talking about. I'm not sure about Luke Shaw, Pogba. I think a little bit of Pogba. So, but that's Jose. You know what you're going to get with him. You know what I mean? But you need to be able to control your mouth a little bit. And that's all I'm saying. I don't want it to be a bigger thing than what. I just got to look at the business part of it. It's you got to chill out.
Well, I'd never be a manager, mate. I couldn't think of nothing worse than dealing with.
But not being able to say how you feel.
You're saying that. We're talking about the bad thing. Imagine the feeling that we used to get when your team scoring the last minute.
I get that.
When I speak to managers, when I speak to, I think it was Frank I spoke to or someone, and they said the feeling you get from winning and losing as a player, he says, is multiplied either way as a manager.
I got that on the 10 team I coached last year. Feel great.
I used to coach the under 16s, and we'll be building up from Monday to Friday. And obviously the boys, I think we'd had a great week training. Yeah. And we've set up, say we're playing Spurs on the weekend.
Yeah.
And we've set up and we've gone, yeah, we're ready for them.
Yeah.
We've got everything down to, mate, whistle goes, 5 minutes in, we're 2-0 down. can't think of it. You want the... I remember we went to Spurs, yeah? We went to Spurs. And we'd prepared fully, like, we're up for this game. Yeah. Went to Spurs at the training ground. And we got beat 8-0.
Oh,
now,
8, yeah?
I'm looking at myself. I'm doubting myself, obviously. Not even my coaching, just myself, if I really want to do this.
Really?
Because when the fifth goal goes in, you're like, there's no comeback for us. If we get that one, I don't care who scored it. But what I do want to see is the belief of the players. And I want to see the players actually believe in it. And sometimes
you want to see an improvement as well.
Yeah,
seeing improvement's great.
And if I see that, then I want to do it more. But then I didn't see that. I was like, oh my God, this is stressful. So imagine that. I'm imagining that feeling when you're getting pummeled on the weekend or you're not winning games.
Yeah.
Managers, what they have to go through. Stress. Proper stress. So sometimes I've got to forgive them when they don't come out after the press and say the right things. Because it might be a situation where they can't control that emotion right there and then.
That's true.
No matter what upstairs say, and if you're young as well, you might not say the right thing. And Amarim's going through that at the moment.
That's true. And
he's fully invested, isn't he?
And that segues on, like, stress and worry and anxiety leads us nicely on to Tottenham Hotspur. Sorry, Spurs fans.
Listen. Sorry, Spurs.
I just before we get onto this game, before we get onto this, talk about Postecoglou. First of all, apparently, Tottenham fans, if you're listening to this, right, it's going to cost you 12 million Great British pounds to sack him, right? You're 15th in the Premier League. 24 points from 23 matches, 8 points above the relegation zone. They've won one of their last 11. They've taken 4 points from the 33 available. It's desolate. They're in disarray, and I'm not surprised. And I think the question I need to ask, start with you, Bridgie. He says Postecoglou or Daniel Levy. It's like Tottenham's. Some fans are saying it's Daniel Levy. Some players sack the manager.
It's a bigger picture, isn't it?
So, where do you stand with that?
Well, they keep sacking the manager and he's still there.
I like that. Concise.
Yeah.
Straight to the point.
Solved, Spurs fans.
There you go.
You got your answer.
Let me out.
Now, when you think of it like that...
It's quite serious. You're
right. We can almost move on, can't we?
Yeah. But that's never going to happen, is it?
No.
And it's ex-players. You hear them talk about him. Do you know what I mean? It's... I don't know, I'm not around there, don't see it, but you get a lot of people that talk about it. So, in simple terms, if you want to change, big change, I think maybe that is the.
Maybe he's got to take a look at himself as well, though. There's got to be some self-evaluation here.
Yeah, self-awareness.
Self-awareness, mate. You keep on sacking the managers. You're the one that's employing them in the first place.
Yeah. It's true.
It's not like this is a consortium.
Yeah.
The buck ends with you.
Yeah.
If you're going to stay there, right, but get some help.
Get some help.
I need help. Just
and listen
to around it. I need some serious help.
Getting help, though, Bridgie. You've got to listen to the help.
Yeah.
That is where. Where you can always. Oh yeah, he's proper. Bring him in.
Maybe that's when it comes down to business, though, isn't it? It's a business.
Exactly.
Like, they've got their infrastructure is unbelievable, by the way. Like the stadium. We've gone through this before.
Mate.
The stadium. They've got a race course. F1 go-karting underneath. They've got Beyonce coming in the building whenever. They've got whenever, like when they're doing a concert, they've got concerts going. It's a great facility. The training grounds, unbelievable, state of the art. But the fans know all that. Problem is, they want silverware.
Yeah.
I think what they won in the last 20 years, one trophy.
They just want some good football at the moment.
The one little time they could have won a trophy, they sacked him before the final.
Mate.
Jose Mourinho.
Yeah, I know.
And like, this is self-harming.
We get off Tottenham winning the trophy last time they won it. It was half my fault, to be honest. My kids actually brought it up as well.
Did they?
I coached the under-10s last year, so it was like... I did really enjoy it, but it was the mental. For me, it was more the mental side of the game. They don't play full sides. It's just about reacting to mistakes, and don't see them as mistakes. Nothing always goes to plan. Just react, positive reactions. And I was going about, everyone could do this. Don't get on their back if they make a mistake. Just G each other up. and things aren't as bad as what you are in their head. And my son out of nowhere just stood up there going, yeah, well, my dad gave a penalty against Tottenham in a cup final and they ended up losing. I was like, mate,
salt in the wound, man. Your own blood. Your own blood. This is a big champion than me. Like, my dad's supposed to be the best in the world.
Kids are ruthless, mate. They are ruthless.
They're honest.
Yeah.
They're honest.
Quickly getting full circle, having a Spurs fan, all of that, what you said, both of you is bang on, right? But like you hear Spurs, they ain't interested in having the best mega store. What I had a row with my mate.
It's a great mega store, though. Went in there, it's unbelievable.
He's going to me. I laid it all out to him. No trophies. Selling your best players. You've got no chance. He went, and you could see him searching for something. He went, oh God, have you seen the mega store though? I went, what? He went, it's amazing.
The mega store.
Yeah, I'm like,
go-kart track.
Oh, go-kart track. I'm like, but that's it, right? But we're laughing and joking, right?
Oh, they've got a good cafe as well in there as well.
Shit.
I tried that out.
Well, that payout's massive as well.
The payout's massive again.
All right, so
that's not the problem.
That's another point.
But here's the thing, for fact,
He's got a great agent.
Postecoglou?
Great agent.
Really?
He knew what time it was.
Yeah.
He was like,
if he's got that in the agency,
I'm surprised Daniel Levy he must have really believed in him.
To
say, all right, at any point you sack me, you got to give me 12 million in my bank. At any point.
I bet Daniel's got a couple of leaps.
12 mil. Payout's quite good though.
Apparently, talking to...
That's the main thing. That's the main thing though, Bridgie.
Yeah,
your contract, nowadays, don't forget about like the contract what you get in a week. Yeah, forget about that part. You need to, because you're gonna get sacked.
Yeah.
You're going to get sacked. Yeah. Or it's gonna be a painful, slow death.
Yeah.
To the finish line. Yeah. If you're not coming out with results and they don't want to give you that 12 million up front, it's very painful because you're like, oh, blimey, I'm not winning games. I've lost the team.
I couldn't be a manager. I've got enough grey hair, mate.
You can understand. Do you know now, looking back, when we've been in situations when we've all played for managers being a sack, and you can sort of see the moment where the soul moves out of them and they start walking in the training ground and they're like, they're just like, please sack me. Please sack me, get me out of this.
Misery.
You can see it, can't you?
But they're not going to leave. They won't leave because who would be stupid enough to walk away from 12 million because of pride?
No.
I'm dragging that all the way home.
Yeah. I'll be chirpy walking into the training ground as well.
Mate,
good morning, everyone. How are we?
How's everybody? It's like coming to America. Open the windows.
Oh, mate.
Good morning, everybody. We need to get these clips up, man.
In Queens.
In Queens.
That kind of energy.
And then you hear someone say, shut up.
He wasn't the one who said, we ain't going to get any better or something like that, was it?
Yeah.
He
said something along those lines. That
you can't be saying that though, can you?
That's when
they've tried their best.
For all fans out there, right? Whenever you hear managers and it's going wrong, start to say some wild things in your press conference. This is what they're doing. They're trying to get the sack. They're sort of like you're playing cat and mouse. You're sort of like teasing someone.
Mentally, it's a real
or they've
struggle.
Genuinely lost.
Or they genuinely like, I can't do this anymore.
Mate, Is your pride worth 12 million? Probably, yeah. Cash. Is your dignity worth 12 million? Probably, yeah. Everything is worth 12 million. I would go through it. I would go
dignity,
through it. So I'm already getting paid the weekly. Then if you want to sack me, 12 million on top of that, mate. I'm there till the...
No, I'm not going to pretend I'll take the moral high ground there.
There's no guarantee that you're going to get another job after that.
Yeah, exactly. They can ruin your... Look, I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't know if you said it, Bridget, where you said, get help, but listen to help. I think that's the thing in football. So if young managers, the first thing you're negotiating is your exit fee. You're going into a job where you don't really... Because if you genuinely backed yourself, right, and you had it set up to work, but you know that's what's the only thing that's stopping me is having to work with an owner is unreasonable.
Well, that is why they do that.
But where are they reasonable? A lot of the owners,
so you have to protect yourself.
You've got to protect yourself like that because
it's an insurance plan.
It's like it's like having a plumber come round your house and you're looking over him going, "Oh, don't do it like that, mate. Don't do it like that. No, that doesn't go there." The geezer's going to be going, "What, mate? I've been in football for this long. You've been, I don't know, selling
to plumbers."
Yeah, but that's what we do here.
Mate, I know what you're saying, though.
You know what I'm saying?
It's true. It's actually
It's
true.
almost like I've been in rooms with people where I'm talking football, right? And I know I can talk nonsense sometimes about a lot of subjects, but when it comes to football, like my mates in the pub, we're talking about, and they're talking about football, and I'll say something, and you go, "What do you know?" Mate, I've been doing this since I was...
This is what I do.
This is what I...
I'm brought up in this.
It's like me going to their job.
Yeah.
And saying, no, you don't do... Oh, anyway, but yeah.
Everyone's got their preference, innit? But you can't come and tell a
mad thing
professional
like
what to do in their profession. I just don't understand it. Sometimes it is actually enlightening when you have someone from an outside view that knows the job as well, though.
Yes.
To come and give you a bit of advice. I'll probably do it that way or do it that way. If you've never played the game, like, I'm not saying you have to have played the game, but if you don't even know or relate to what is being in front of you, you can give a point of view. I'll take that in.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, yeah, he knows what he's talking about. Because he doesn't. He doesn't know the feeling. There's emotions involved.
Yeah.
There's different parts of that to the script. I really think that Daniel Levy needs some help.
He does.
And he needs to listen to the help.
Do you know what? If Daniel Levy's listening to this, I don't think you are. Give Glenn Hoddle a ring. Am I right, Bridget?
Yeah.
Give Glenn Hoddle a ring. That's a man with Spurs in his heart.
Yeah.
He's of an age where he's been through everything in the game. Everything in the game.
Yeah, he's probably one of the... I'd have to put him up there with Jose
and listen to
I've
him.
had as one of the best, definitely.
Get him in and listen to him.
100%,
And not only that, you'll get the Spurs fans on side. But don't just get him in to put him up there in the senior director's box. Listen to Glenn Hoddle.
Great shout, to be fair. Great shout.
And Glenn, I'll take 5% if that does that.
Hey, do you know what? Let's look back to that game because I watched it, and Spurs, they're just missing. I don't know what they're missing. They're missing everything. They've got a lot of injuries. So to be fair to Ange, and that's what he's just coming out and says. But let's talk about Leicester, man. Like Ruud van Nistelrooy, and I always said it. I said Ruud van Nistelrooy might be their saviour because I think, and apparently last week, he went into the dressing room. I think he dressed them down.
Did
basically.
he?
It was a bad result. He wasn't happy. I think it was against Brighton, maybe. I think it was. And they obviously lost. And he's gone in the dressing room and just went ballistic. And I can't see Ruud like that. But this has obviously brought something out in him. Jamie Vardy pops up, gets the goal, and they're starting to turn it around now.
Yeah.
Sometimes a footballing person that understands the game knows how to react to a certain situation that's happened the week before to get the best out of their team. And I think Leicester, they're quite lucky to have someone like Ruud that understands the game. And Ruud's never had this challenge before. He needs to make them into winners overnight, basically.
Yeah.
And Leicester now, I feel, have got a good chance of staying up. You know, I think they do. I don't think they're far off it. I think they're out of the bottom three now.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're out of the bottom three. So, for the first time in ages, by the way.
Yeah.
So, this is a good... And listen, you've got to talk about Vardy, man.
Yeah, man.
Vardy is flying still at his big age. And he's still doing what he's doing. I know that you can say that he started late in the Premier League.
Yeah.
But to still have that desire, and he's still making the same runs at the same speed.
I know.
Probably got quicker.
He's probably a great example.
Oh, he got quicker.
He's actually probably a great example when you were talking about earlier, like the kids in football, like if it doesn't go the way and it's what they're going to do next, like you can just keep going and you can get that break. Because it's being lucky to get a break sometimes. I know you put your own effort in, but it just goes to show you, just because one club says no, you can still get there. You know what I mean?
We love them stories, don't we?
Yeah.
Ian Wright
was another
when
one.
we was growing up. And,
Les Ferdinand won.
Les went around the houses. There's a lot, and it still happens. There's kids out there, man.
Do you remember
Lasana? Do you remember Lasana Diarra when he come in from the second division?
By the way,
mate,
what a player!
Lasana Diarra, I was his mate, innit? I had to show him around town.
You were probably the wrong person to show around town.
I was giving that job.
Don't go no coffee shops. I know that much.
I don't know. He just gravitated towards me, man.
He was a player, by the way. He's just unlucky that Maka was.
Yeah.
He played right back a few times. He's unbelievable at right back.
Yeah, he was.
He's so good.
Such a good player.
Do you know how many clubs he's had? And
Mate, I know.
Quality of clubs, the sign of the era has
Real
had.
Madrid.
Yeah. Real Madrid.
Arsenal.
Portsmouth. Pompey. Chelsea, obviously. He's done. Didn't he go PSG or something as well?
Mate, I think he did. Yeah, he's done the rounds
Marseille, I think as well.
Yeah, he's been everywhere. Mate, strongest man.
player.
He was like running into a brick wall.
Yeah.
Like there was just a wall.
They've just done a rule. I think he won a court case.
Yeah, he won a court case.
He won a court case.
Moscow.
Yeah, and I don't know what it was about, but I don't think they was going to pay him his money or something like that. 'Cause something happened.
Yeah.
Google it; it will come up online. But he's changed the whole law in the game.
It's like I've heard that like a Bosman type rule, but a modern type thing. So listen, what a player. Bridgie, you was at this game, so I'll start with you.
Teams.
Manchester
City versus Chelsea, the Wayne Bridge derby. Well, first of all, how was the atmosphere like? Because it sounded good on telly.
It was good. It's wicked atmosphere.
Which ain't always the case at Man City, is it?
No, I don't know.
Really?
I don't know.
What do you think? You played for...
I love being at Manchester. Everyone's friendly. I love being up there. I loved going back because it's still got some of the old staff that work behind. Claire, a massive favourite of mine. She used to see her every day. It was great to see her.
Yeah.
Some friendly faces. In football, you go around and it becomes a family for a bit, doesn't it? And then you just leave and it's like...
Yeah.
And you create relationships. So it was great going back. I thought the atmosphere was good. And obviously it's extra special for me, the kids being mascots.
Yeah.
But the game itself, Man City was just sloppy near the beginning. But the more the game was going on, you see they're just getting into it. And you think they're going to score at some point. They had a few chances. Felt sorry for obviously the centre-back making his debut. You could see it was just...
What did you make of it? Because the first 6 minutes, I mean...
The header, obviously, nightmare for him. And then there was a couple of sloppy passes, clumsy challenge. And you just thought, I just felt so sorry for him, mate. You could hear some fans moaning. And I'm just, oh, man, I feel for him. I just wanted someone to put his arm around him, gee him up a little bit.
That's a good point.
And he don't speak any English, which is hard. Man City probably haven't defended as good this year. It was a difficult one for him. I just hope he gets another game soon and plays well. Because he doesn't want to be dwelling on that all the time. You've got to get in, do well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And get going. But the game itself, like I said, the more the game went on, I thought they're going to get a goal. Going to get a goal.
So the player that we're talking about is Kushanov.
Yeah.
He's just come, obviously, to the team.
Uzbekistan, first Uzbekistani international in the Premier League. I think it was the 126 or 129th international of like different country to play in the Premier League. So I've got, obviously, I know a few scouts. And they rate him really highly.
Rate very highly.
But let's talk about this, right?
Right, go on.
Nightmare debuts. Because he's had a mare, He's had if you're going
to... won the game.
I know.
He's not...
There's been worse.
Not there.
He's got dragged off.
It's not that bad.
He got dragged off.
Mate, he got into the game. Yeah, he got dragged off, but he had a yellow card as well. And I think there was another foul. And I wonder if Pep was thinking... we can't be getting sent off.
On his first game.
Dragged him off then. Because he did get into the game.
He got into the game, but it was... I remember there was a point in the game, and I'm not taking... I'm not winding anybody up here, but you know what it's like, when you see a player, one of your teammates, he's having one, right?
Oh, so mate, but I feel for him. Dalton laughs and it takes the mick out of me. I'm sat there feeling sorry for the kid. I'm laughing.
I've been there.
We've all been there.
We've all been there, don't get the ball. I saw. They saw him. Don't pass it to him. Don't pass it to him. Don't pass it to him. I saw the goalkeeper. He came out. He looked at him. He's gone, he's gone outside the pitch. I was like... is everyone seeing what I'm seeing here? Just give him the ball.
I've had a nightmare one and I feel sorry for him. I had one my first game.
You've got empathy. You have empathy. There's a load of people laughing at you, Bridgie.
No. Do you know what though, mate? I was saying I hope he's mentally strong to deal with it.
I'll get through it.
I played Theo Walcott onside, then gave a penalty away. It was a nightmare start.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I'm I just thinking, I need to get back out on that pitch and put it right.
Yeah.
Because if you dwell on it too much, it's going to affect your confidence. But all I was thinking to myself, mate, good 5-yard pass, and then it was bobbling a little bit, and I was like, oh, no, mate,
Ain't it mad?
Get a
bubbled a
pass
bit.
in, please.
Yeah.
And it did settle a little bit.
Like, you know, like for me in my position, strikers, like I've missed sitters before, and you just want the next one to come quick.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to be like, oh, it's my only chance. I'm gonna have the whole game, and then you might have one at the end of the game and miss that too. Then you've just had a mare of a day. So I've been there. I understand it, but it was just seeing it again. I was like, didn't actually pass it to him. That they're trying to look after him.
What's worse now is social media. So that could go on.
Yeah,
those little clips could go on and on again. At least for us, it was match of the day, written, and then you move on. Now there's just little clips all the time, constant. It's horrible.
It's ripping you up.
Horrible for some players.
I've seen enough from him. I know, like, mad as it sounds, but I know he's had a bad game. But I've seen enough in a few little instances, like, he's going to be a good player.
He's going to come good. He'll be fine.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. It's just...
Is there any...
and Pep came out and said it as well.
Yeah,
said, listen,
will be.
He's just adjusting at the moment. Like, but that was a bad one to give away because... and I was actually surprised with Jackson. How did Jackson even know he was there coming? That was a brilliant setup, by the way. I was like...
Yeah. He's unorthodox, Jackson. He does really good things, and then he'll do something wild.
Basic that you think,
he's still developing. But
I just felt like they were going to win anyway. I did something as the game was going. I just had a feeling.
I had Chelsea down to win. To be honest, I thought it was going to be a Cole Palmer, but Cole Palmer was really quiet in the game. I think he could have, like, and
he was in the headlines as well. Cole
was he? Was it?
What was it? Gary Neville. You know, it was his comments
about him being in the.
I want to say something about Cole Palmer. He was talking to Pep Guardiola on the pitch right at the end of the game, and he was smiling with him. Pep Guardiola does that. Cole, you're being played. You're being played here. You didn't do enough out on the pitch in the second half. What's your thoughts on that?
That's his home.
Like, he's saying that's been said.
You're being played. Yeah, no. This is
you're being
Gary
played.
Neville, you're being played. You're being played here.
Yes.
You didn't do enough out on the pitch in the second half. I don't understand.
I don't get what he means by that.
He's being hypercritical on. He shouldn't be laughing with the team that just beat you, basically. Yeah. But he's being played. I don't know whether.
Who said, Cole, you've been being played? Gary Neville.
Yeah. Like you're being played here, like as in. But
you don't have a relationship. That could be like a. You know, I can emphasise with what Gary said
what
there.
He's come in. He was maybe talking and they have smiled or laughed.
This is ex-manager.
Do you know what, mate? I just love Cole Palmer.
Yeah.
I just think he's a breath of fresh air. I think he's old. The way he plays, the way he carries himself. I always say it looks like he's playing very relaxed, like he's playing on the park, and I think a lot of people could take that away from him.
Yeah.
Because you play better when you're doing that. If you have too much on your shoulders, it can affect your game. That's one thing I love about him.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I was so disappointed he never played more for England because I think
the Euros.
It was always bring him on.
Yeah.
And save the day type thing. Just start him.
Let him play.
I get where Gary Neville's coming from because you've just lost.
Yeah.
Why are you kiki?
But you also don't know what's being said,
and you also don't know what makes Cole Palmer ticks as well. Like you said, Bridgie, Cole Palmer he needs to play freedom. So like winning or losing probably hurt Gary Neville, and that's how he reacted. Like he was like, I've got within myself, within my shell. I don't want to speak to anyone. I'm sort of punish myself. And I think our generation, that was more expected of us, that. But I think with Cole Palmer, I think, like you said, think of all the Brazilians you played. You'd almost think that they didn't care. But when they were like lions on the pitch. Yeah. But they had this ability to switch off afterwards, go, right, where are we going tonight?
You don't know.
What I mean? And that's fine.
You don't know how Cole Palmer's feeling after that game.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He probably was.
He doesn't show a lot of emotions.
Pissed off that he was.
Of course.
Yeah.
They lost. He probably was.
Yeah, of course.
We're just jumping because of one thing you've seen.
Yeah.
You don't know what's been said.
Context.
I kind of get. But I think maybe.
And he's not one to show emotions, really. Cole Palmer. He's a nonchalant guy,
mate.
He's chilled. To get anything out of him, to get a smile out of him.
I hit
That's probably why it hit home a little bit for Gary Neville, because he's never seen him smile.
Two players I've really enjoyed watching is Cole Palmer and Phil Foden.
Yeah,
right? They just seem so different. The way they control the ball, the way they move it.
Yeah,
I love watching them too.
Yeah, you're right, mate. You're
a bit like when people love watching you back in the day. Phil Foden, he always stands out for me.
Yeah, and that's ultimately sometimes in football. it's an entertainment thing as well. And I go to Chelsea games when I'm not working with my kids. They're mad Chelsea fans, and I put me out on. I get my coat and I go. I walk with the punters, and I'm with the kids. I don't really want to stop too much, say hello to people and everything. But you listen to people. I just listen, and it's excitement to watch Cole Palmer.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
so these people, they paid their money, and
he's bums off seats.
He's bums off seats. Gets on the bottom. You
can see something's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's what everyone pays to watch. That's what you're going to watch. It used to be Raheem Sterling. Raheem Sterling was bums off seat because he'd just get the ball and he'd just go on amazing, drive forward and make something happen. So, look, I think he's been called out just there a little bit too harshly. To summarise it up, and listen, Cole Palmer, be yourself, keep on being yourself, don't let people put you down, and just do.
I don't think he would, to be honest.
I don't think he does it. I don't think he listens.
I think
it's a great mentality to have, though, mate. Because we don't all have that.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I know.
You need to like.
But I get where
he's going to care, mate. He's got that mentality. That he believes in his own ability, and he carries it.
Let's talk about.
We don't all have to be.
Yeah,
El Gary Neville.
No, of course. Let's talk about generation.
We're all different.
Let's talk about generation. Now, I was having this debate with my missus.
Well,
I need to get a
well, you've lost.
I know. No, it was fair.
Yeah.
So I was like, I asked her, like, what do you think about this concept? Like, because it's a different generation now, and remember there was always this debate about what era was better. The players of today, or the players of yesteryear, like our generation.
Yeah.
And I heard Rio Ferdinand and Sol Campbell on his pod talk about the generation that said, "Oh, we wouldn't do things us that way. I think we were better." I don't think Vidic, what's the boy down that thing? Van Dijk.
Van Dijk,
at Liverpool.
Yeah.
He's not being tested. There's loads of other type of strikers. Around back in those days that would give more problems to him now. They didn't have to deal with Michael Owen, didn't have to deal with do you know what I mean? Or Yakubu, or do you know what I mean? Different kind of, and there were more strikers back then, definitely.
Yeah.
But my argument to that is some of those players wouldn't be able to play in the systems that are being playing today.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I don't really like when people talk about. I'm not saying I don't really like. I find it interesting when people talk about different generations and different eras to what the boys should be thinking now, even all the way to what they're thinking to how we used to think. I don't think it's fair. I just think we should separate the two.
They've been brought up in a different world.
Yeah, they're brought up in a different world. We're not used to what they've... it's like music as well.
Yeah.
Our generation of music, we're thinking, we had the best music in the 90s.
Yeah.
Or even the 80s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But most of these boys, they're listening to all this drill music, this hip-hop, this mumble rap, whatever.
Yeah.
But... That's not.
We're old, mate. We wake up and still listen to the same music.
But I'm open
20
to
years
it.
ago.
But I'm open to it. I listen. I listen because I want to be down a little bit.
I want to be down.
I want to be down a little bit. You know what I mean?
I want to be down.
But you've got to change with the generation, man. You just got to move with it.
But I think we're good at that.
Yeah, I think we are. We are good. We're on the same page on that.
I'm trying to be on the same
page.
page.
You look like you're 20. Look at you. You look like you're 20, mate.
Brand new.
Great. But this is what I'm trying to say. So when it comes to the generational thing, like when we want to understand these players and we're comparing them to what we used to be like, I just think it's unfair.
That's what always makes for a good debate when people say who was better over the years, innit? Do you know? R9.
I just don't think you can compare, man.
No, you can't. But that's why there's always a debate about it. Though, isn't it? You're never going to know.
I'm not going to compare you.
That's someone's opinion.
I'm not going to. I won't compare you to who's a left back. Robinson that plays for Fulham. Luke Shaw. I'm not because it's different generation, different things were put in front of you.
Yeah.
I even say this. Yeah. So stop. Everyone needs to stop comparing generations.
Yeah.
It's different rules now.
Yeah.
Different rules.
The game's just totally different.
The game's different. Like,
different pitch, different rules, different ball.
It's a different football game now.
Yeah.
You used to think when we were playing and the older generation of players, you say how soft our game was.
Yeah, I know.
Imagine what they're saying, what it is now. It's like touch football, isn't it?
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was ruthless. It's always changing, mate. It's always changing.
To talk about as well.
Go on,
I've got to get off my chest. I've got to get off my chest.
Listen, we're going.
That sending off the other day for Skelly.
Yeah. It's embarrassing.
Listen, he didn't. He meant to foul him. It's a yellow card and move on.
What's his name again? The ref, I forgot.
Oliver.
Michael Oliver. So
Michael Oliver.
Have you seen it, Bridgie?
I haven't
seen
seen
foul,
it,
right?
no.
So it's a generic professional foul flicking up on the shin pad, right?
He's in his half.
He's in his half.
No, there's in the opposition's half, and they're trying to break.
So he's gone out, he's gone bang, brought him round, right? Here's my opinion on it, Coley, because Michael Oliver's, he's got previous with this, right? And what you understand is Michael Oliver's the big fish in the refereeing pond.
Course,
like he's the FIFA one or UEFA one. Like he's like, so all the other referees around him, the VAR sort of laud him, put him on this thing, right? So your job in VAR is if you think he's done, if you're that VAR person and you think he's made a mistake, which he had, 100% he's got it wrong. And I would love him to come on here and try and defend the fact he's got it wrong, right? It should never have been a red card. But you got then a responsibility to say to him, I think you've got it wrong. But I think what's happening with Michael Oliver all the time, when he makes a decision, they're so frightened for whatever reason to pull him up on it, to go to the... Because ultimately, it's saying, we think you're wrong. Go and have another look at it. That's what it is, right? Yeah. But that's what it's supposed to be for. And the fact that they didn't come in, right, they should all have... That should be some consequences for that from VR. And Michael Oliver, again, you know, you can't make a decision that bad. He should be going into the video. He should be horrified after the game.
Look.
And go. I think he's horrified. If you ever let me make a mistake, and
go and put it on him.
You tell me when I made a mistake. Yeah. We're a team. Like if we're together, you'd like to think, and you've done something wrong, I'd tell you. If I'd done something wrong, it was one of the worst decisions I've seen.
Do these? One thing I want to know: do these referees? Yeah. So Michael Oliver's the main referee on the pitch. On the pitch, is that the linesmen? Are they with him every week for this whole season?
No.
And is the VAR people with him every week for this?
No.
And the fourth official?
I don't think so.
Or is it always changing around?
I think it's changed. It has.
I think they need to have. I think one referee go with a team everywhere.
Do you know what I think the problem?
Because then they'll have an understanding on how to get better. When you're doing it and you're mixing up the referees and it's a mixed bag. You don't know. He might have a different view to me on something that we need to be on the same page at all times. I need to be able to bounce off you.
Imagine if a ref's got a problem with you.
Yeah.
You've got to mix it up.
Well,
imagine if he thinks something of you.
Of who? Of who?
I don't know. There's a player on there. He has a perception of what that player is, and it's the wrong perception. And then he's always on his case. Doing that.
My fourth official has to be able to recognise that. Yeah. And say, I think you're wrong there.
Accountability.
Yeah, I think you're wrong there. So let's have a look at it again.
Yeah.
Because he might have a bias, and we're all human at the end of the day.
I think he's biased because you at the.
I don't reckon it'll work. I get where you're coming from. I can't see it.
Maybe it's just a suggestion, isn't it?
Yeah. No, the lad Miles Kelly who got sent off. So Bridgie's a young left back. You'd love him, right? I don't know if you've seen him, but he's very aggressive.
Robust.
But he's very aggressive, and he's got a great personality.
Yeah,
he's leaving
brilliant.
a bit on people. He's giving the crowd bits and all that.
18
And I
years
think
old.
Michael Oliver has just taken a Must have watched him play. It's like a dislike to it.
So you're getting above your station, you are.
Yeah, but
imagine if he's doing it every week, though. Imagine if he's reffing that
every
week. Do you know what I mean? He's got a problem with him.
No, you got me wrong. Not refereeing the same team.
All right.
I mean,
they go
just
together.
the team of referees go together. That's where you got me wrong.
Same team. Oh my God.
No, that won't work. That
definitely won't work.
No. I was saying the same team of referees go together. So they all know each other's traits. They know each other.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It might work. I'm not saying.
Yeah, no.
And then you might eradicate these little bias parts, because I'll know, Coley, we had a conversation about this guy. But then you would say, because you've got self-awareness, you say to me, let's watch that I don't be too biased on it. So I can actually make a decision. A clear one without having that. But it's just like, see how me and you, I'd help you if you was, I think, you've got a little bee in a bonnet for that guy. So I'll be watching you so you don't overdo it. Then I'll pull you back and say, don't do that. Because I'm your mate. You know what I mean? So that's what I was. It's just about looking after each other.
Tell you, when we were coming back to Chelsea and City, did you see the thing about the Chelsea tickets in the dugout?
I've heard about them.
12,500.
You're right, Geese.
For one ticket.
VIP dugout club seats with premium experiences, making it 139 minutes. What is this premium experience?
Me and Joe Cole on a match day.
They met me. I was at the game. I met them at Wolves.
Oh, was it me, Richie Day?
I tell anyone, listen. I ain't worth £139 a minute. Even at my best, I ain't worth that. If I'm there.
So let's read
I
this.
think, like,
Chelsea
like
are charging $12,500 for a single ticket to their to their final 2 home games, offering VIP dugout seats with premium experiences, making it £139 per minute of action.
They
so
are
what you
being
do? You just got to talk to them all day.
I don't know. I'm not involved in this. Don't put this on me, guys.
I'll put it on you because you probably come up with this.
I'll be popping up next year.
You're trying to get a bit of that 12 grand.
In fact, anyway, I don't know what's going on there. 12 grand, 12 and a half grand. I don't.
Why is it 12 and a half grand, by the way? Why is it 12 and a half grand?
For those games, I think it's the last 2 games. It's still going to be a hefty-ish price for the games. Even Wolves, I don't know what they pay, but I reckon it was still a lot. And obviously, for the normal fan, well, it's just crazy money, isn't it?
Yeah.
What I did notice when I met him, I thought, when they come along, I thought, yeah, that ain't Chelsea.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there was one guy there,
right,
who came to speak to me, who's proper Chelsea.
Really?
And he's been fans for years. He'd been a fan for years, and
Yeah,
his
yeah,
wife actually got it.
Yeah.
For his birthday that game.
what a
I don't know how
woman.
much it would have
What a
cost, but
woman.
I was like, and you know when you're speaking to him, out of all the fans, he was proper Chelsea.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, do you know what? He used to go all the time. He's probably still a season ticket holder. He goes all the time.
If you could afford
Everyone
it.
else is a bit different. You can tell it's not
Reggie,
proper Chelsea.
These prices represent a dramatic increase, though, from last season, where it was 5,000.
Eye-watering, they called it.
5,000 record for similar tickets, double the cost for high-demand games against Liverpool and Manchester United. So now, we've got to look at it corporately now.
Right, yeah. Okay.
Let's look at it corporately. I'm looking at this, I'm thinking...
You've raised the tone of the talk straight away.
I'm thinking, I need to make money for this club. I'm put in the position to make money and churn out money for this club. We need to be in profit by the end of the year.
Right, okay.
Now, what can I do to try and increase the match day experience for a fan that's willing to pay?
Right, okay.
That actually fits the bill. But to go from 5,000 quid, to doubling it almost, more than doubling it, to 12,500 quid.
Yeah.
That is just ridiculous. So now I'm looking at it as well from a different point of view. I'm just an average Chelsea fan. I'm local. I ain't got the money that Chelsea, some of these people have.
Yeah.
And I really want this.
Yeah.
I really want to have that experience, but I can't afford it.
Yeah.
I'm coming away from being a normal, having that Chelsea experience. I know that person over there is getting way better than me, but I can't afford that. And I really want, how do they kind of bridge the gap? Yeah.
Well,
from the average guy, the commoner, that goes into supporting their clubs, but wants that experience as well. How are they going to have to replicate that? They're not going to be able to. So it's just getting further and further away from the common man that supports Chelsea or any other club, in fact, that's going to do all these prices.
This isn't just Chelsea. I think other clubs.
I know other clubs are doing it.
I'm not 100% sure, but obviously
we're talking about this. It's
you've got to look at two sides.
It's Chelsea because it's 12 and a half grand and it's in the news, but this is all clubs. You're talking about ticket prices for proper fans and actually, looking after the people that come, the heart and soul of the club. The problem with it is now, is the owners of the clubs are generally foreign hedge funds, private equity owners, right? And they look at the club as a business, right? And rightly so, Bridgie. If you bought something, you want control of it as a business, right? So, and the business, the actual match day fans, which is, I don't know who come up with this idea, but they call them legacy, like when they're strategizing, they call it legacy fans, because there's more. The money is the Asian fans in Africa, fans in South America. Like that's a market where they're getting just as much revenue because these people have to pay to watch the games. They buy the shirts. So the actual match day fans used to be like, if you was a chairman and it was going wrong, like you usually owned a business and you owned a club and you felt it. Do you know what I mean? Because you're amongst the people. But nowadays, it's like I think they don't. It's like they want to keep them happy, but they don't know how. It's very, very simple. Lower the ticket prices. Lower the ticket prices.
The fans are, for me,
the heart and soul of the club.
I think they are the heart and soul of the club. They are the ones that go week in, week out. They can watch a load of rubbish. They still come back the next week.
Exactly.
They are the main thing of the club when I look at it.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're right.
But Bridget, I look at this format. Now,
let me just do that.
You've got obviously the fans, the normal fans, the normal punters that used to come in, week out. The ticket prices are going up. Yeah, it's becoming less and less affordable to do it every year, to buy a season ticket. I think eventually season tickets are going to be scrapped because the Premier League it's gone up in... Look, we've got to rate the Premier League of what it's done.
Yeah.
Now it's a franchise, worldwide, renowned franchise, yeah? Now you're getting different supporters from different parts of the world. You're getting tourists coming in and they want to have access to come into a game.
Yeah.
So the ticket, if the ones that are buying the season tickets, they're probably not going to be able to buy season tickets soon because there's going to be loads of tourists that's going to come in and buy the match day tickets.
Yeah,
you know? And that's still a market, and you can charge whatever you want on that, depending on where. London is always going to get the most hyped the rise of it as well, because I think London is where everyone lands. They go to Heathrow, then they say, I want to go to a match that day, bosh. You go to Chelsea, go West Ham, Spurs, wherever. Yeah. But the locals that actually have been supporting this club since they were born, they're the ones that are going to feel the hit because they're not going to have access because it's getting more unaffordable for them to be going week in, week out. It has to be a match. Now it's a match. And then now they're adding on match day experiences, which is costing an arm and a leg. And there's loads of people in for that as well. Yeah. So they're just catering to the clients. The clients. That's what they're doing. They're catering to the clients. They're saying, what do they want? Yeah. But we're forgetting about the locals.
And that's it. So, I heard somebody bought a club once said, you don't actually ever buy a club. You buy the lease. The club's owned by the community and the fans. So you've got to get that in your mindset. If you own a football club, you've got responsibility because it's global and it means a lot to so many people. But here's the kicker. Because listen, punt. People will be listening to this and going, yeah, it's all right. 3 ex-players saying, drop the ticket prices. You got paid handsomely for playing, right? You think of it like as a commercial entity, right? So football is players only get paid so much money because people want to watch it, right? That's the only reason, right? The owners come in and they want to try and make as much money from their business, right? The owners are generally sort of people who've been from privileged positions, you know, like our children, or they've grafted, but they usually get they're privately educated in that world, and they're brilliant at whatever they do, whether it be in finance, they've created something, they're brilliant at what they do, right? So they want to make football make money, right? And they look at it and they go, right, and then once the fans are going to get angry because they keep raising the ticket prices because you've got to keep paying the players more money, right? The players are the ones who are fans. They're walked in the same shoes as the fans. I walked in the same. We've all been that people.
Common guy. I'm from the hood.
Yeah, and so players want to get paid
from the estates.
Fans, you should want the players. You should be going, good on you, man. Yeah. You've earned that money. You deserve it. You've gone from there, right? The owners should be the ones that should be, you know, trying to make it work. Yeah, trying to make it. It shouldn't land on the fans. Like, they should have a responsibility, I think, where the fans, whatever the common, you know, because economy changes. Yeah. Whatever the common man earns, he should be able to. If he works hard and he's working really hard and he's got 2 kids, he should be able to take his kids to watch football. Yeah. If possible. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, if they can.
And I think the responsibility lands with the owners. It's harsh on players saying they shouldn't be earning that much money. It's bloody hard to be a footballer.
I'll tell you what they shouldn't get.
What?
OBEs or things like that.
Yeah. We had this conversation.
It's football, for Christ's sake, mate.
I know.
Like, do you know what I mean? I don't get all that.
Yeah.
I know I ain't got one.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Not
OBE. So don't think we're in the running.
No, I know, but like, it's not like a thing. I can't believe that happens,
It's
mate.
your service to football.
I know, but mate, it's football.
Yeah, but that's a massive
thing.
thing.
Like doctors or things like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Just playing football, something we loved doing as a kid, mate.
You're an entertainer.
Yeah, but mate, you shouldn't be getting something like that for
You're an entertainer.
I'm having it, mate.
I'm actually agreeing with him there.
No, I get what you're saying, but you're an entertainer. You're good.
Carlton.
Reggie, you were good for some people's mental health.
Me, but people that have it, though.
No, you were good for some people's mental health. It was a getaway from their normal life.
You're good for my mental health.
I'm telling you, I love watching Bridgie play. Yeah, I'm gonna go and watch him today because he makes me feel better. Like, that is priceless, Bridgie. So you can't put yourself down. You meant something to someone, and that's why.
Like, we're players and we're fans. That we're just normal people.
I get you.
It's just like
but we talk about
when we are. We just get paid. We got paid really well.
We got paid really well.
Let's talk about the fans now. So I think in the German
Can I just steal my argument there? Because I don't know.
Go on, sorry.
Let me finish. No, sorry, because I don't want to like.
Yeah, just leave it open because you might get.
Fans can. He thinks.
Yeah.
Listen, I think everyone who does a job for society should get paid a big wage, right? But what I'm saying is, I think the responsibility should land on the owners to make it work. The players should get paid handsomely because it's such a tough job to do. Trust me, everyone in the world wants to do it.
Pressure.
Any player who makes it has my respect, and certainly the fans shouldn't have to pay extortionate money. They should be able to take your children. If you work hard, you take your children to games football, and we can knit it there. Quick one to finish with. I don't even know if this will be quick because this has really burnt me today listening to this. Manchester United's plans for a 100,000 capacity Old Trafford receives major support from the government and Chancellor Rachel Reeves. Like, have I read this right? I could be wrong, and I'd be happy to. But the regeneration project will include new housing, commercial spaces, public areas. But it's all about taxpayers' money to go and help Manchester United fix their stadium. Like,
oh mate, you don't. This can be over in seconds,
the
mate.
rats and mice that's in there.
Someone in the government's getting a load of money. There you go.
There you go.
Don't talk about it's
I think like this happens in America a lot.
Oh
right?
no,
With
but I read stuff like that. I'm like, there's something.
Mate, I better keep my mouth shut.
It ain't, mate. That is. I'm sorry.
I better keep my mouth shut, mate, on that one.
Nah.
Don't entertain that.
Well, listen,
it happens. Taxpayers' money. Look at the state we're in already, mate.
People are struggling.
I don't want to get into politics.
No, I don't want to get into politics.
Okay.
Although part of me said I wish I would. Like to think I'd do a better job than what's out there.
Well, I think you would. I'd vote for you, certainly.
All right, let's talk about the transfers, man.
Let's get back to football.
Let's get back to football.
Yeah.
Because look, I'm not a politician. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a business mogul. I'm just Carlton. My views don't matter. It's not going to change the world.
Right. Yeah.
I could just put a few food for thought out there. You know.
Go on in.
So let's talk about Kyle Walker. And obviously, he's gone to what we were saying, following on from last week.
Great move.
Great move for him, getting away from everything he's going through over here. I think it's very, very a great option.
Yeah.
Go and see the Italians.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Go and see how they do it over there. I see him sitting next to Ibrahimovic the other day.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
He looked very happy and welcomed there. So, yeah, good on him. And I saw him smiling as well. So that's what I want to see. Kyle Walker deserves that, man. I know, look, he's got issues in his personal life, but what he's given to the game, yeah, just go and be happy, man. Go and be happy and try and live the rest of your life free.
Yeah. Well, listen, he ain't going to struggle, man. Listen, we wish him all the very best.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Great move.
Everyone, yeah.
Great move.
Great move. Great team, isn't it?
Great, yeah.
Milan in your resume is all right, isn't it?
Yeah, lovely.
This is an interesting one, Bridgie. Anthony has joined Real Betis on loan. This is the lad who signed in 2022 for 86 million fee that made him the second most expensive player in the club's history.
That's mad.
Has only scored 12 goals in 96 appearances and has not started a Premier League match this year. Safe to say, it ain't worked for him, is it?
No, you're nailed on the head there, mate. Yeah. It's just mad that you can see someone who's got so much ability before he's playing the game. So when you see all the clips before he's come...
on TikTok?
Yeah, do you know what I mean? But you see it and then all of a sudden it's just...
it's...
Mate, he was...
It just goes to show it ain't always that simple.
He was playing in
there's a lot that goes into it, the mind and everything, and...
He was playing in the Dutch league. He was playing in the Dutch league, and they went and they thought this would be a good idea.
Do you know what I mean?
This would be a good idea to
spend players.
No, but someone thought that would be a good idea. Man United's recruitment has been poor. You got to say that. Now they're living with it, and that is a massive.
It's
example.
also not an easy job. Recruitment, though. Recruitment is also not an easy job.
Well, if I'd like to think you spent 86 million on a player, you want to be really sure that this player is world class.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
I don't know. Do they do enough homework in terms of what the player's like? What's he like mentally? What's he like for the team? What's he like around?
I think that was a carve up.
I'm not sure enough of that is done.
I thought it was a carve up.
I agree with you.
I agree with you. If you're signing a player, you're spending that amount of money. One, he's got to have the ability, but what is he like around the team? What's he like when the chips are down?
Yeah.
Like, he's got to be good around the dressing room. Do you know what it's like? If you have a bad egg in the dressing room, it don't help.
Yeah. Of course
if
not.
things aren't going your ways, it's that he's got to have a positive thing for everyone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Know that they're going to work through bad times. He's got a good mentality. That's what I say. It's not easy. You've got to do your own work. I don't think it's always done right.
Yeah, but Bridgie, at the end
that's
of the day,
what the boys. That's what the recruitment team, the director of football, is paid to do. He's supposed to do his own work, and then they're paying them. They're paying them a fortune to do that job.
Yeah,
and it's not working. So, and this is over a 10-year span. You know, like after Alex Ferguson left. Or, well, was it more than 10 years?
He knew what was happening. He got out of there,
mate. He's taking the lifeboat with him.
Man United didn't even have a director of football.
Yeah. Listen, you can see. Anyway,
it's only now they have. Yeah.
As a lad, we wish him all the very best at Betis. Maybe a bit of sun on his back. It will help him.
Do him a lot of good. Maybe the grey skies of Manchester weren't happening for him.
So, listen, he ain't seen the sun for 4 months.
You know what I mean? He only blossoms in the sun.
Yeah.
You know?
Newcastle revamp efforts to sign Isak on a long-term deal. I mean, how can you not? This kid's on fire, isn't he, Coley? As a centre forward, how good is he?
He's unbelievable. Like he's probably the best in the world right now.
Wow,
that's a big statement. I know.
Mate,
I see some of his goals, man.
Yeah.
Mate, I see a disallowed goal that went top bit. I was like, this guy is unbelievable. Like he's striking of the ball, he's pacing behind. He's one of those strikers that don't. All the strikers nowadays just want to come to feet.
Yeah.
There's only a few that want to go in behind. And guess what? They're the ones that are more successful at the moment.
Yeah.
Because they're going in behind. Look at the goal for Haaland the other day.
Yeah.
2 of them, right?
Yeah.
And goals came from it. I know, obviously, against Chelsea.
Yeah.
I don't know the goalkeeper, Sanchez.
Yeah.
They need to sort him out anyway. But he's running behind. I know Chalobah had a stinker, yeah. But that movement in behind, these defenders are not used to it anymore.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't want to run back towards my goal.
What's this?
What is this? So he was so startled, he slipped.
We were used to it back in the day, though. Everyone was like, the channels.
But that's the game's changed. So when you do see it, Isak's one of them that does it quite a lot.
Marmoush, the new signing at Man City,
he looks like he was at it. And then Haaland, obviously, does it all the time. So Isak, to get that type of striker nowadays... you need to sign him in on the long term.
I think he's like he's 10. He's 11 and 11, but he's only not scored in one of the 11 games. Isak, right? So he's on fire. But that game was the game I watched him up against Bournemouth. And
he was quite
Big Crouchy. We were doing it for TNT, and we went there. It was great. It was a great game. And Big Crouchy went to interview him the day before the game, and he was like, the big man was like, I've put him right. I've showed him what it's all about. I was like, messing about.
Give him some advice.
And at the end of the game, it's the only time he ain't scored 11 games. He spoke to him the day before. He was
Crouchy.
Yeah, the big man was.
Oh mate,
we had a nice time. We had a nice time. But listen,
for Bournemouth, Crouchy was working for Bournemouth that day.
I might have to take Crouchy off my wall now.
That's it. If anyone,
bad luck.
we might get it out. Bridgie won a go-karting tournament with Crouchy.
I was there.
I walked into his house the other day.
Wall, didn't I? For a bit of banner.
Oh my gosh, we need to show this. Like, he's got the biggest framed picture of Crouchy.
I
thought what I'll do is I'll put it up and see if anyone notices when they come round.
If anyone notices,
I swapped it for a bit of artwork. Mate, I forgot to take it down. It's been a couple of months now. It's still up there.
If anyone walks into here, I think it's a thing. That's weird.
Yeah.
I find it weird when no one mentions it. Like you come in and notice it. People must walk out and go, "Where's got Peter Crouch?"
That's weird.
The workmen that come round and don't mention it. I'm like,
what they mention it, you know what they're thinking. That's weird.
He's got no class.
He sat there with a tiger. He's like laying down with a tiger or something like that.
So funny.
We get it out for people to have a look.
We need to see it.
Saudi League making massive moves. Listen to this. Plotting world record fee for Vinicius and Pedri. Saudi Arabia is paying €350 million for Barcelona's Pedri, following a similar 350 million interest in Vinicius. That's, mate,
they're out. They're out to change the face of the game.
Yeah, listen, that would do it.
If you're getting these boys in their prime, yeah.
That changes it.
That changes. Now everyone's eyes are going to be over there. Everyone's eyes, because you're getting these boys at 23, 24 years old, looking at that type of money as well.
Mate, highly lucrative.
Oh, mate, I don't even know what to say.
I don't know how to make it. Like, it's almost like, because we've not seen anything like this before in our time playing football, you don't know where to go with it. So, you know...
It's one of them. It's just kind of watch this space.
Yeah.
I'll tell you
See
what.
if it happens.
I'll tell you what. If they went in, for Pedri.
Yeah.
Barcelona are going to be very.
They've got
$1 billion release clause. $1 billion on Pedri.
Do you know what? So
Right?
they've sat around on the contract table and gone, right, what should we put on the... no one's going to pay $1 billion. They didn't see the Saudis coming.
They're coming, all right.
That's falling down the back of the sofa.
I bet they wish they put $3 billion.
A bit of change, yeah. What? Take that, mate. That's not. Pedri, your ass.
Come here, son.
Come here, mate. And then I know for a fact, Barcelona, they're going to be like, we're going to take it.
Solves their problems.
We're back in. We're back in the race.
Back in the game.
They've got better recruitment than Man United.
Yeah, exactly.
Last one. Al Nassr preparing a bid for Aston Villa star Gerrans to fend off West Ham interest. I mean, West Ham. I know it's difficult for you to talk about, Coley. You're in the building, but I liked the fact West Ham made the offer and they're looking at players like him. I think he's brilliant, but
he's not being played.
What's happening now? Even if these players decide not to go to Saudi, it's pushing the prices up, which puts more stress and strain on the clubs
and the whole economical welfare of the game in the Premier League.
Yeah,
in Europe actually, because it's putting a lot of stress now. They'll say, okay, you need to play this or else he's going to Saudi.
Yeah,
you need to play that or else he's going to Saudi.
Yeah.
It's just ups.
Clubs might go, you can go Saudi, because you ain't going there because we get more money for you.
It just ups the money now.
Just make it more difficult.
It just ups the money now, so it's just making it more difficult for everyone. There's a spanner in the works, isn't it?
It is, mate.
They're doing it on purpose. They're ruffling some feathers.
They are ruffling.
You see how serious you are about this, eh?
Yeah. It won't be if they sign them, though. It's going to be mad.
It's a little bit like the boxing. Riyadh season, right?
I love what's happened with the boxing.
It's brilliant.
I love my boxing.
So for me, there's no way, no boxer can hide anymore.
No.
Everyone's exposed.
Yeah.
What, you're talking about, the money's not enough. What are you talking about? The money's there. Do it.
Fight.
But let's not like call it, let's call it for what it is. You're scared, didn't you? You don't want to do it. You've got street cred that you want to protect. Just say that. You don't believe in yourself. That's all. These are the questions are being asked now. This is what is coming into football now.
Wow. Let's
put
see
your money where
at.
your mouth is.
Let's see where we're at. Well, listen, thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah.
As always, chaps, we got a night out on Saturday. So the Monday next week will be what's the word? Laboured could be the word. Laboured is one of the words.
I'm not going to be sprite. I'm not going to be this sprightly.
No.
So if you know,
so bear with us next week.
You've got 24 hours to recover.
All right, Wayne Bridge.
We're not all machines like you. Gosh, you'll be in the gym next day.
By the way, it's not even a night. It's not even a night out. It's daytime.
Yeah, it's daytime.
To be fair, it's not a night out. We're in the dark in some place. I don't know.
And thank you for coming.
But I know I'm going to be. I know I'm going to be well looked after.
Before he lands us in it.
No. I know I'm going to be well looked after though.
Yes.
I'm in his neck of the woods.
You're in my neck of the woods, mate. Camden Town,
mate.
Everything's
so we're going to have a great time.
The heartbeat of London to anyone who's out there. Thank you for listening to The Dressing Room with Al Arabiya News.
From the White House to Gaza, Kiev to Beijing, elections, economics and the environment compete with conflicts and other complex issues for our attention. In an age of fake news, deepfake and artificial intelligence,
they've got to have a vote and a say.
It's important to look beyond the loudest voice to understand the truth. From newsmakers to groundbreakers,
My campaign is going very well.
Presidents, prime ministers, princes and peacemakers, and cultural tastemakers.
As Arabs, as Middle Eastern, we're too emotional.
Join me on The Risan Show for empowering conversation.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of Global News Today, bringing you exclusive insights and fresh perspectives from leading experts and influential decision makers every weekday here on Al Arabiya News. I'm Tom Burges Watson, and today we're going to take a look back at some of the highlights from our show during the course of the past week. Growing concerns in Denmark and more broadly in Europe about President Trump's interest in taking control of Greenland. Well, Greenland is a semi-autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. Well, the Danish Prime Minister has today been meeting with European leaders and the NATO Secretary General in a bid to drum up support and discuss next steps. Meanwhile, Copenhagen is set to spend some $2 billion to bolster security in the strategic Arctic region. The EU is saying that European troops could be sent to Greenland. Well, Denmark's scramble to ramp up security in Greenland follows a fiery phone call between President Trump and the Danish Prime Minister over his demands to acquire Greenland. Well, speaking on board Air Force One this weekend, President Trump says he's pressing ahead with those plans. Let's take a listen.
I think Greenland will be worked out with us. I think we're going to have it. And I think the people want to be with us.
Well, let's get some more analysis. We can cross to Copenhagen and speak to Mogens Lykketoft, the former Danish foreign minister and former president of the UN General Assembly. Thank you so much for joining us once again here on Al Arabiya News. We were just hearing there from the US President Donald Trump speaking at the weekend. I mean, this Greenland issue is getting pretty serious, isn't it?
It looks very serious and extremely strange. I mean, the situation is as follows. Greenland has been for hundreds of years a part of the Kingdom of Denmark. It is now, as you say, a self-government entity. They can decide over the coming years to be totally independent, at least in the formal way, because a small nation like Greenland will always have to lean somewhere, talking about defense and so on. And the situation has been since World War II that the United States has been present militarily in Greenland as much as they wanted to, actually. They have the Pacific space base in the northern part of Greenland now. They have voluntarily retreated from other places. But it's obvious that Denmark cannot alone defend this huge, huge territory of ice-capped land that Greenland is. So if the President of the United States wants more military presence, not only from Denmark, as you have just decided to present, but from himself, the door is open. If the United States wants to invest more in mineral resources in Greenland, the door has been open for a long time, but it's not that easy. Several companies have tried and given up. But what we cannot do, of course, is to secede the island of Greenland to the United States. It has to be decided by the people living in Greenland, and right now in coordination with the Kingdom of Denmark, where Greenland is a part.
Interesting to see that the Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, has been turning to European allies for help with regards to Greenland. I mean, what can Denmark's EU allies do?
Well, first of all, again, it's extremely strange and worrying that an allied country, a small country that has been staying beside the United States for nearly 8 decades, is presented with such kind of claim, it seems to be, to just give part of our territory away to the US. Secondly, there is no meaning of any kind of military takeover because the Americans are already there. There's no kind of logic in threatening with economic tariffs against Denmark because Denmark is a part of the European Union. It would be an attack, a trade war attack against the whole European Union. So what will the Americans, what does President Trump want to do? I don't know. But it seems after his son, Donald Jr., visited Greenland with some people a week ago, that they have an intention in one way or another to involve in elections with a huge amount of influence and money, with elections in Greenland about the future status of the island. And that's a little frightening also. That reminds me personally about Russian involvement in elections in Moldova and elsewhere.
I mean, there are some suggestions, and these are being touted today because your Prime Minister has been talking to European leaders, meeting the NATO Secretary General, there are suggestions that Europe could dispatch troops to Greenland. Could that really happen?
Well, Greenland is a part of NATO, and Greenland is in a certain way associated, but not member of the European Union. And of course, it's part of the territory of Denmark. And if European countries would be asked and willing to do that, it's a possibility, of course. But that would be more or less of a symbolic gesture. I haven't heard of anyone actually discussing that right now.
But Donald Trump himself, if we listen to some of what he's been saying, he says, we're going to get Greenland. And when he was asked if he'd use military force, he said he wouldn't rule it out. So, I mean, a military option is not entirely off the table, is it?
No, the strange thing is that military force is deployed already from the United States in an agreement signed back in 1951, and they could deploy further forces on other places where they have had bases before. But the international law question here is it possible to think of a big ally taking over a part of the territory of a small ally? And if that's the final demand from President Trump, not just fulfilling all his concern about the military security and the minerals and keeping away Chinese and Russian interests, but that we should simply accept that the Greenlanders being American citizens instead. That is, as I understand it, I'm not representing the Danish government, but as I understand it, totally impossible to even think about, neither in Copenhagen nor in any European capital.
It's really interesting hearing what your Prime Minister has said about her conversations with President Trump. She described one telephone conversation, well, this is an unofficial source, I should add, that described this conversation as having been, quote, horrendous. The same source said that Donald Trump is serious and the situation is potentially very dangerous. We've also heard President Trump mocking Denmark and suggesting you wouldn't be able to defend the island of Greenland anyway. I mean, how much of a stir is all of this creating in Denmark? Is this national news, or are people trying to brush this to one side and ignore it somehow?
It is indeed national news. And I think a lot of people who have also personally been very much aligned with that the United States was our greatest, most important ally, are simply unable to understand this kind of behavior towards a small allied nation. And you also have to realize that the Greenlandic people, which is mainly Inuit, but also very much interrelated with Danish people, 1/4 at least of the Greenlandic nation is living in Denmark. We have common citizenship. We have very, very long time, hundreds of years of bilateral relations and family relations. So it's not a thing to demand of the Greenlanders that they should go away from that connection with Denmark, even if they were independently governing themselves. It must be, as the Prime Minister, both in Denmark and in Greenland, have said repeatedly, it has to be the Greenlandic people themselves that desire their future. Denmark is not going to keep Greenland inside the Kingdom of Denmark if they don't want so. We have already made the script for if at some point the Greenlanders want to be totally independent, they can choose to do that. But I think most people will say that's a process that will be some years ahead to be defined.
And just lastly, I mean, when people analyse this on the news and on the radio in Denmark, I mean, are people coming up with theories as to why Donald Trump is doing this? I mean, does President Trump, they say, perhaps have a strategy here? And, you know, he's a negotiator. He likes to negotiate a deal. And perhaps he's got these far-reaching demands, but the idea is really to meet halfway. I mean, what sort of theories are people coming up with?
Well, the problem is on the issues raised by the president, it's open. It is something you can. Well, the door is already opened. You didn't want to make any force to go through that door. But if the ambition is that on the globe in the future should be written on the 2.3 square kilometers of ice cap in Greenland, United States of America, it's not a thing that any Danish government would be able to negotiate.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. Mogens Lykketoft, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Now, the Iranian foreign minister has warned Israel and the United States that they'd be, quote, crazy to strike the country's nuclear program. He added that Tehran would retaliate with a forceful response. Well, he made those comments in an interview with Sky News. Well, this comes as some in Israel express hopes that Donald Trump's return could lead to a strike on Iranian nuclear sites. But the US president has made it clear that he prefers a diplomatic approach. Well, Trump's first term saw the US withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. Meanwhile, Iran is insisting that its nuclear program is strictly for civilian purposes. And its recent return to high levels of enrichment has been raising concerns, though, amongst some Western governments. Well, for more analysis, we can speak now to retired Brigadier General Mark Kimmitt, former Assistant Secretary of State for Political and Military Affairs during the administration of George W. Bush. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us, General Kimmitt. Let's just start by talking about what we've been hearing from Tehran. The Iranian foreign minister saying that he doesn't think the US or Israel will attack his country's nuclear facilities. He called the idea crazy. I just want to get your opinion. Is the threat of such an attack real, in your opinion?
Well, I certainly believe that both the United States and Israel have the capability, number one, to attack, and number two, to make a significant hit on those facilities, probably one that would set their program back by years. Now, in terms of capabilities and intentions, those are two different things. So, yes, the United States does have the capability, whether it has the intention or not, to conduct attacks. That really is in Iran's court, not in the United States.
Why do you say that?
Well, simply, the Iranians appear to be hell-bent on developing a nuclear weapon. Now, it's clearly the case that every president since the Iranians have started the nuclear programs have been very declarative that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. It becomes a greater threat to the region, and even more so, it would start a nuclear arms race in the region that could very well spin out of control. So the policy of the United States remains that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon in their hands and will take the necessary action to prevent that.
Yeah, and we've heard President Trump talking about a renewed, quote, maximum pressure campaign on Iran. I'm just wondering what you think he might have in mind, apart from what we heard from the Iranian foreign minister, who seems to suggest he might be planning an attack.
Well, first of all, I think that it would be the position of President Trump that we're going to use every available tool before resorting to the military option. But let's just take one hypothetical. Right now, Iran's economy is very much in a shambles. The only thing that's truly keeping it afloat is oil exports going to countries that provide it with hard currency. One can only imagine what would happen if there was a blockade inside the Arabian Gulf to prevent the Iranian oil from getting out and into the open market.
And of course, there must be a realization of what you just said in Tehran. And that's why perhaps we've got reports that people are saying that Donald Trump's return to the White House is, quote, an existential threat from Iran, or viewed by Iran. I mean, it sounds like they've got good reason to be worried. What's going to be different, do you think, about the second Trump administration compared to the first in this regard?
Well, I think that the Iranians, if I was President Trump, should see this as an existential opportunity, not a threat. Look, at the end of the day, President Trump, number one, does not want to start new wars, and number two, certainly does not want to see a war that would break out as a consequence of an attack on the Iranian nuclear capabilities. He's not a warmonger, he's a deal maker. He is looking for a deal with the Iranians that would give them reason to pull back from developing a nuclear capability and in return get sanctions relief. But everybody knows that you don't come to the negotiating table by backing off. You come to the negotiating table in a strong position, and in this case, a threatening position. But it's clear that the United States does not want to see Iran have a nuclear weapon. It is clear that the United States does not want to go to war because of it.
Yeah, and I mean, you could argue the Iranians are doing the same thing, because we listened to what the Iranian foreign minister said. He said there'd be immediate and decisive consequences in the event of an attack on our territory. He also said it would turn the entire region into a, quote, very bad disaster. I mean, what sort of things do you think Iran could potentially do were such an attack to take place? What's he getting at?
Well, first of all, let's be very clear. Iran, through its Iranian Revolutionary Guards Force, Quds Force, and its proxy system throughout the region, has caused that very crisis throughout the region that up until October of a year ago, it was clear that the Iranian malign hand was in every unstable situation in the Middle East. And it's only since October of 23 that the Iranian proxy system has been that octopus with its head in Tehran. Each of those legs are being cut off. So candidly, Iran is in the weakest position it's been in years.
And General, there's an argument, isn't there, that the Iranians don't even know how vulnerable they are, because there are suggestions that the whole country, the whole system, the whole infrastructure of the Iranian government or regime or whatever anyone wants to call it has been infiltrated to the nth degree thanks to cheap intelligence. Intelligence easy to come by these days. What do you make of that?
Well, I'm not an intelligence expert, but it certainly does seem if they are able, Israel are able to infiltrate Iran to the point where they can take Yahya Sinwar in the middle of an Iranian Revolutionary Guards Force a guest house at the invitation of the Iranian government. I would say their infiltration is pretty significant.
A couple of the other things that came out of the interview with the Iranian foreign minister that were striking. He poked fun at President Trump's idea of moving Gazans to Jordan and Egypt. He also poked fun at the idea of taking control of Greenland. I mean, that's not likely to have gone down well with President Trump, is it? He doesn't like it when people mock him.
Well, look, I think you've always got to pull back and understand the axiom with President Trump. You can take him literally or you can take him seriously. And I think in the case of Greenland, excuse me, I think in the case of Greenland, what he is looking for is a pretty good deal with Greenland, primarily for the defense of the United States. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to make it a state, that he's going to turn into a real estate opportunity. But I think he's trying to get a deal out of Denmark so that we have better permission to be able to use Greenland, which is an incredibly important piece of land in terms of defending the United States. In terms of sending refugees to Jordan and to Egypt, well, I think both those countries have a vote in the matter. He may be trying to apply the pattern he used with Colombia, which refused a couple of plane loads of refugees that we were repatriating, and they finally acquiesced to that. Again, the president is a real estate dealer and he simply is looking for a deal. How he goes about that, what he says, is more commercial than it is diplomatic, but he's able and willing to make a deal.
And just lastly, we've heard from President Trump. He is reported as preparing an executive order for, quote, next generation defense shields for the United States. I mean, what does that say to you about the overall mood in the United States? Why would such a move be necessary?
Well, again, I think this goes to the core of President Trump's political philosophy, which is defend America first, make America great again. Let's make sure that no other country has the capability to blackmail us into making decisions for them. This is an old issue that has come about for years and years. I remember before I went into the military in 1972, that the ABM treaty, the anti-ballistic missile treaty, was signed between the United States and Russia. 10 years later, you had President Reagan signing the ABM treaty with Russia. This is a long process of treaties between the United States and its adversaries in terms of either reducing or defending against the threat of nuclear weapons invading each other's homelands.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. Really appreciate it. General Mark Kimmett, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.
Well, for more analysis on the latest developments relating to Israel and the Palestinian territories, we can speak now to the renowned Middle East researcher and political scientist, Professor Norman Finkelstein, who joins us from New York. Professor Finkelstein, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on Al Arabiya News. I wanted to start by asking you about one of the week's top stories. We heard that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is going to be the first foreign leader to meet President Donald Trump since he began his second presidency. What sort of a message do you think that sends to the Palestinians? And what do you think the new administration has in store for the Palestinians and their aspirations for statehood?
The message, I think, is threefold. First of all, it's to appease Donald Trump's base, a large part of which is, here I'm referring to the Republican Party, a large part of which is enthusiastic about Israel. Number two, it's to placate or appease the billionaire Jewish supremacists like Bill Ackman, the billionaire Bill Ackman, who supported Donald Trump. He left the he defected from the Democratic Party, and he supported Donald Trump because of his expectation that Trump would give the Israelis a free hand. And number three, in general, he wants to transmit the message that international law will have no part in his administration, that even though a search warrant has been issued by the International Criminal Court against Prime Minister Netanyahu, as well as the former Defense Minister Gallant, that those kinds of considerations, i.e. the rule of law, will be ignored or flouted by the Trump administration. As to the prospects, my guess is that Donald Trump will give the Israelis a free hand so long as it doesn't become an international crisis in Gaza. So if quietly the Israelis can block any humanitarian aid from entering Gaza, if quietly the Israelis can prevent the rebuilding, the reconstruction of Gaza, if quietly the Israelis can force a fait accompli on the Palestinians in Gaza, namely stay and starve or leave, then President Trump will happily go along with it. But he's sufficiently knowledgeable to know that if it becomes a public international issue, that it could become a quagmire for his administration, as it did for the Biden administration.
Okay, so this idea of resettling people from Gaza in Egypt and Jordan, which we heard about from President Trump during the weekend, it's been flatly rejected by both countries concerned. It's also been flatly rejected by the Arab League. But what you're saying is perhaps we haven't necessarily heard the last of it.
I do not believe we've heard the last of it for the following reason. Gaza is no more. As a physical fact, the estimates by the UN are that 92% of the residences, the homes in Gaza, have been destroyed or severely damaged. About 2/3 of the infrastructure has been destroyed. There are about 50 million tons of rubble in Gaza, intermixed with unexploded ordnance and toxic chemicals, toxic substances. So the estimates are it will require probably about 15 years, maybe more, if 100 trucks are admitted a day, which is almost impossible to imagine Israel allowing. It would take about 15 years just to empty out the rubble. Now, Israel will use the excuse that if it allows cement to enter Gaza, which is obviously a sine qua non of reconstructing Gaza, Israel will use the pretext that it can't admit cement because Hamas will reconstruct its tunnels. So the people of Gaza are going to be confronted with a very stark reality, namely, there is nothing to return to, and Israel will have achieved its primary goal, its primary aim the past 15 months has been to, quote, make Gaza unlivable. Let me repeat that. Their primary goal was to make Gaza unlivable. And as things now stand, it is literally unlivable. And so the people of Gaza will be confronted with a very stark choice, which is either to stay and die or to leave. And at that point, by hook or by crook, I believe large numbers of Palestinians Gazans will figure out a way, no doubt facilitated by Israel, will figure out a way to leave.
You're making it sound as though a Palestinian statehood has almost never looked more distant a prospect than it does now, not least with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in power. How do you think history is going to look back on a figure like Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I frankly am not particularly interested in how history with a capital H looks back on any figure, because the question is always who is writing that history. If it's history as written by the victims, he's obviously a genocidal, Jewish supremacist, obnoxious, narcissistic, genocidal murderer. And that would be the proper verdict, were it the people, the victims, who write the history. But if it's written by the faithful, loyal scribes of power, institutions like the BBC, institutions like the New York Times, if it's written by those folks, then the record will be that, yes, he did some wrong things, but he was, of course, loyal and faithful to his people.
We were just talking before we crossed to you about the ceasefire that's been in place now in Gaza and has kept the peace for the last week and a half or so. I'm just wondering, President Donald Trump has taken considerable credit for that ceasefire deal being struck. How much credit do you give him for it?
I think that Donald Trump was faced with a dilemma. He announced that a month before he assumed his office that unless the hostages were freed, there would be hell to pay in Gaza. And the problem was for Donald Trump, the hell was already paid in Gaza by President Joe Biden. There wasn't much more he can do in the way of unleashing hell. Secondly, he didn't want to begin his presidency on a monstrous note, which would be unleashing even more weaponry on the defenseless refugee child population. On the other hand, he didn't want to come across as a blowhard on his first day in office. Namely, he said there would be all hell to pay. He had to do something. And so given the two choices of appearing like a monster on his first day in office in a very unpopular, it wasn't a war, it was a genocide, in a very unpopular military action by Israel, and coming across as a blowhard, namely saying there would be all hell to pay and then doing nothing, between those two choices, he opted for telling Netanyahu, you have to sign an agreement that releases the hostages so he can claim that he followed through on his threat, and that the rest, the stage 2 and stage 3, would be consigned to the dustbin.
Just looking at who's in the new Trump administration, the ambassador to Israel, Huckabee, Elon Musk, looking at the inner sanctum, people surrounding Donald Trump, how well advised do you think he is on this particular issue? And what do you think it means for peace prospects, for the future of the Palestinian people, that President Trump is there with those people around him?
I do not believe there's much question, or there ought to be much focus on who's surrounding him. You can be surrounded by rednecks and bizarre figures, or you can be surrounded by very quote-unquote enlightened people like Tony Blinken. It doesn't really make much difference. The common denominator of all these people is very simple, that force works, that we have a near monopoly on force, and that if you consistently, persistently persevere in the resort to force, violent force, that you can get your way. So I don't think there's much utility in investigating the personalities of these people. When it comes to Israel-Palestine, literally only a flea's hop separates a Mike Huckabee from a Tony Blinken. Only a flea's hop.
So you don't think a figure like Elon Musk, who is shaping up to be a really important figure, he's already demonstrated he's a very important figure in the Trump administration. He wields enormous power on social media. He's also extremely close to President Trump. Do you think he might bring something, perhaps a new approach, a new way of looking at this historic problem?
No, I think there's too much of a fixation on flamboyant personalities and not sufficient recognition of the institutional investments in U.S. foreign policy, as well as the normal modus operandi of U.S. foreign policy, which is the exertion of maximal force. Elon Musk probably can't find Israel on a map and probably couldn't care less that he can't. And people like Mr. Huckabee and others, they have no special personal investment. And even if they did have a personal investment, such as the one by the billionaire Jewish supremacist Bill Ackman, he has a personal investment because his wife is a former Israeli pilot. So I imagine there is a lot of table talk at their estate about how to influence Trump. But the personalities surrounding Trump have no personal investment in Israel. And so it will be the default setting for all of them, which is maximal force to pulverize weak people.
Do you get the impression overall that the US public is particularly interested or particularly concerned about developments thousands of kilometers away in Gaza and in the Palestinian territories? And do you think they're well enough informed?
The U.S. public, I wouldn't say it is any more fickle than other publics. I would say the U.S. public is as prone to news headlines as any other public. And there was a certain point, in particular in the spring of last year, roughly a year ago now, when the student encampments seized the, if it's not imagination, it seized the attention of the U.S. public. And at that point, public concern was pretty steady, even though for a short period of time, and it had an impact on the Biden administration. However, the Jewish billionaire supremacist class, people like Bill Ackman, Barry Sternlicht at Brown University, Robert Kraft at Columbia University, they start to exert their financial leverage on the universities. They ousted, unprecedented in American history, they ousted 3 Ivy League college presidents, President Gay at Harvard, President McGill at University of Pennsylvania, and the president of Columbia University was eventually ousted. And then the marching orders by the billionaire Jewish supremacist class was to crush all resistance on the college campuses to the Israeli genocide in Gaza. Now it's gone a step further with Harvard University last week imposing draconian limitations of free speech at Harvard when it comes to Israel and Palestine. So to get back to your question, in my opinion, the main order of the day has to begin on the college campuses under the slogan of Free Gaza, Free Speech, namely the right to free speech and the right to freedom of assembly was crushed last spring around graduation time in May. And the challenge now has to be for every college campus in our country to seize on the slogan, Free Gaza, Free Speech, the right to speak your mind out on the genocide, the ongoing genocide in Gaza, and the right of assembly. So in my opinion, they should set a date, maybe April 1st, 2025, where every college campus in our country simultaneously, in synchrony, sets up a new encampment. Now that would mean, in my opinion, a direct confrontation, not just with the university administrations, but with an emboldened President, Donald Trump. It would be a direct confrontation. But I think in terms of preserving what remains, the remnants of our democracy in this country, that's a confrontation that should be welcomed by the students, activists who will play a vanguard role in trying to win back that right to free speech, which was crushed not by the Trump administration, but by the Biden administration, but which Trump will no doubt capitalize on should there be resistance on the college campuses.
Yeah, and I just want to ask you, because, I mean, some of our viewers might not be aware of the draconian measures that you're referring to on campuses. And I think you mentioned recently that words like Gaza and genocide are two words that are, in fact, forbidden in some university campuses. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm just wondering yourself, as a professor, as an academic, what goes through your mind when you hear that centres of academic excellence are forbidding the discussion of important issues, essentially?
Well, what goes through my mind is how utterly spineless these university administrations are, how totally lacking in any principle whatsoever these administrations are, and how superficial, how cheap is their commitment to principles like academic freedom. You hear the term over and over again, proudly burnished by these universities. Academic freedom, the university being the ultimate marketplace or free marketplace of ideas, that no thoughts should be banned, that there should be no limits at the university setting on free speech, and how on the one hand and how on the other hand was so pitiful, so pathetic, how all these universities caved in to big money, to big donors, how easily, without even a whimper, how easily they sold all their so-called, their ballyhooed principles of academic freedom and free speech. It's so pitiful, so pathetic how these university administrations, beginning with Harvard, acquitted themselves. Remember, we're America. There's no threat of a military coup, of being jailed, of being disappeared, of being tortured in a in a chamber. We don't face those threats, which are faced by so many other peoples around the world. What threats do these universities face? They have, in the places like Harvard, they have tens and tens and tens of $billion in endowments. So they may lose from those tens of billions of dollars. They may lose, yes, it's true, a few $100 million in alumni donations. And because of that, you completely capitulate. You sell all your principles. It's so pitiful. The heroic poses they make. But then, at the moment of truth, all their principles collapse like a house of cards.
And as you mentioned just before I asked you that question, a lot of what you were talking about happened on the watch of the previous administration. It happened on President Biden's watch.
That's correct.
And I'm just wondering...
Yes, that should never be forgotten.
Right, and I just want to ask you whether you think ultimately his handling, not just of that issue, but issues right across the Middle East, in particular this issue of what's been happening in Gaza, do you think that's what cost them the election last year?
Obviously, there's been a lot of speculation on that question, and since it involves subtleties of analysis, of which I'm not capable because I've not studied the literature on the subject, I don't wish to comment. What I would want to say is, number one, however awful Trump turns out to be, we must remember that it was the Biden administration that gave the green light to the genocide in Gaza. Some people bewail the fact that Donald Trump says all the people in Gaza should be cleaned out and resettled elsewhere. Have we forgotten already that it was Secretary of State Blinken who went to Egypt and sent his emissaries to Egypt right at the beginning of the Gaza genocide, calling on Egypt to allow the Palestinians, the people in Gaza, to be expelled to the Sinai? There is so far nothing new under the sun. It was all the basic principles were established under the Biden administration.
Professor Finkelstein, you've got a new book coming out later on this year entitled Gaza's Gravediggers, an inquiry into corruption in high places. Now, without giving too much away about the book, you do take aim at the International Court of Justice, in particular one individual, Julia Sebutinde, who is the president of the International Court of Justice. You single her out for some pretty serious misconduct, bribery, blackmail, plagiarism. And you say the ICJ failed Gaza. Why do you say those things?
I would not say as a blanket statement the ICJ has failed Gaza, the International Court of Justice. What I would say is the following. There has been an enormous amount of corruption in the international legal system, including the International Criminal Court, which needs to be distinguished from the International Court of Justice, including the International Criminal Court, where, and I want to emphasize what I'm about to say, it is not my opinion, it is not my feeling, it is the documentary record that shows, and here is what it shows based on my reading of it, my close reading of it. Number one, the chief prosecutor of the ICC, the International Criminal Court, the chief prosecutor preceding the current prosecutor, Karim Khan, her name was Fatou Bensouda from the Gambia. She was almost certainly being bribed or blackmailed by Israel. Almost certainly. The documentary record on her handling of what was the Mavi Marmara case, that was the flotilla, that was the humanitarian flotilla that was attacked by Israel on May 31st, 2010. That case went before the ICC, and Fatou Bensouda desperately and brazenly sought to crush that case in the ICC. She was almost certainly being bribed or blackmailed by Israel. The presiding judge in what's called the pretrial chamber 1, it's a very high position, the presiding judge, Peter Kovacs from Hungary, was almost certainly being bribed or blackmailed by Israel. Now, turning to the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, it's almost certainly the case, based on having perused the documentary record, that the current president, she was just elevated to her office because the previous president now holds high office in Lebanon, that Julia Sebutindi, and I'm saying this with complete presence of mind and attending to all of the implications of what I'm saying, based on my examination of the documentary record, she is almost certainly being bribed or blackmailed by Israel. Exactly what happened. She is from the Uganda, almost a repeat performance of Fatou Bensouda at the International Criminal Court, and now it's Fatou Bensouda was the chief prosecutor in the ICC, and now Julia Sebutindi is the president of the ICJ, and she is almost certainly being bribed and blackmailed by Israel. The fact of the matter is, the presidency of the ICJ is now, or the president is in thrall to a foreign power. And that's a very serious issue. However, I would also want to say that the previous president of the ICJ, Joan Donoghue, who was from the United States, Joan Donoghue after the ICJ found that Israel was plausibly committing genocide in Gaza, after that finding by the ICJ in January, I think it's January 26th, if my memory is right, January 26th, 2024, Joan Donoghue, the former president, went on the British BBC program Hard Talk, and she flagrantly and brazenly lied, L-I-E-D, she lied about what the ICJ found, and she stated that the ICJ did not find that Israel was plausibly committing genocide. That statement by her was a flat-out lie. So there is a huge amount of corruption at play in the ICC and the ICJ. However, it also has to be stated that the ICJ, notwithstanding what Joan Donoghue stated or lied about, it did, in my opinion, carry out its task, the challenge before it, beginning in January 2024, then again in February 2024, then again in March 2024, and then again in May 2024. Each time South Africa kept coming before the ICJ, and in my opinion, the ICJ did what it maximally could have done to stop the genocide. However, the enforcement mechanisms of the international community, in particular the Security Council, failed South Africa, and of course failed.
All right, Professor, we're going to have to cut you short because we're running out of time, and I want to move on to some other topics, notably the fact that Monday marked the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, where I believe your father was held, and he, of course, survived that ordeal. I want to ask you, as the son of two Holocaust survivors, both of whom passed away almost exactly 30 years ago, at a time when peace and the two-state solution looked perhaps closer than it's looked at any other time in modern history. What do you think they would make of the situation we're in today with regards to what's happening in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories?
I don't have any doubt about where my parents would stand. I would not want to whitewash who my parents were, and the fact that, like all of us, myself included, is filled with flaws, inconsistencies, hypocrisies. That's part of being human. However, on the question of human suffering, and in particular on the question of war and its horrors, my parents were, I believe I can say without any fear of being disingenuous, I believe I could say my parents were utterly, totally principled. Their hearts and their minds would reach out to the people of Gaza, and they would be unsparing in their condemnation of the monsters, the human monsters that currently occupy high office in Israel and their benefactors in the United States. And I am quite sure they would be emphatic in separating themselves, distancing themselves from the Israeli population. I'm not here talking about the Israeli state. The Israeli population, which has displayed, put on display the most horrible manifestations of human degradation and human corruption.
Okay, and just lastly, Professor, I want to ask you, at one stage there was a 10-year ban on you visiting Israel. You've actually been deported from that country, I believe, in the past. Have you tried visiting Israel again? Would you go there again? And what do you make of attempts, are there attempts by Israel to cast you as being some sort of a pariah?
I've made no attempts because it's quite obvious what will happen, and I don't see it as being economical, both in terms of time and cost, to go all the way, to journey all the way over there, only to be told that I'm not going to be allowed in. On the question of pariah, I do not, were it the case that I was a pariah, were it the case, I do not believe that being a pariah is in all circumstances a dishonorable position to occupy. If I might give just one example that comes to mind, there was the great German-born actress Marlene Dietrich. And Marlene Dietrich, during World War II, she sided with the Allies, the British, French, Russians, and Americans, the four main allies. She sided with the Allies against Germany. She was German-born. After the war, when she returned to Germany on occasion to perform, for example, she was jeered and attacked. She had become a permanent pariah in Germany for having committed treason and betrayed her people and her homeland. But, in my opinion, in the hearts of all free people, free men and free women, she, like other Germans who quote-unquote betrayed their country and betrayed their people, people like the Mann, Thomas Mann and Heinrich Mann, the Mann brothers, they will always be honored in the hearts of free men and free women, even as in their places of birth, they are pariahs.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We're going to have to leave there because we're out of time, but we really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. Professor Norman Finkelstein, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.
Well, that is all we have time for on Global News today. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Be sure to join us again on Monday for more exclusive interviews. Until then, bye-bye.
Budapest. Many would consider Budapest a favorite city in Europe. It boasts of great architecture comparable to none, and lets us in on its sophisticated scene that's impossible for any other city to imitate. Here are some things you'll appreciate about Budapest. A visit to the city's thermal baths is a must. Try soaking in the Széchenyi baths, although of course there are countless other baths to choose from. A cruise via the Danube River is another thing you must do in Budapest. Nighttime is the best time to try this. There are special cruises being offered as ways to maximize your scenic trip along the river. For one, you can have a buffet-style dinner cruise while on board. Definitely a feast for the eyes, but may become an educational tour for you too. One of the greatest bridges in the world is Budapest's Chain Bridge. It's the best place in the city for romantic evening strolls. It has a well-known story behind it too. The architect who had created it was greatly proud of his work that he challenged anyone to find fault in the bridge. It was soon discovered that the lions that stand guard at the opposite ends are missing their tongues, and his genius work remains forever. Budapest is also known for its great undergrounds. The labyrinth of Buda Castle is one of the 7 wonders of the underground world. The place has also got many stories to tell, having closed down in 2011, but has already reopened. There are also many cave systems along Budapest to tour, for both a learning and travel experience. There are also wine cellars in the city, which are part of the vast labyrinth system winding beneath Buda Castle. The cellars vary, but are all suitable for wine tasting. It's an experience to learn more about their wine culture. For both learning and travel experience. For shopping, there's the Central Market Hall. Here you'll find the typical Hungarian products. You'll find everything there, from the world-famous sausages, paprika, to their wines. Fresh vegetables are also among the great buys in the market. You'll also find great souvenirs to buy there, such as wares and traditional Hungarian embroidery.
At Arabiya News, we go beyond the headlines. From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Arabiya News.
It's very impressive.